please welcome my guest today, Amber Cyprian.
Yo, thanks so much, Jay. I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you're doing well. Thanks for inviting me over.
Pleasure's all mine, Amber, and I hope I got the last name right. I was actually rewatching the VOD from your stream yesterday when you actually went into the pronunciation of your last name. So I actually had it on my list of, oh gosh, I need to ask them before we go live. Pronunciation just so happened, okay, cool. I got the answer to the test beforehand.
Yeah, like that honestly all works out. A lot of people think that my last name is pronounced Cyprian. It is not. It's pronounced Cyprian, and that's because 12-year-old me, when I was choosing the name for myself, and not as an online handle, but as my, chosen name, I thought Cyprian was pronounced Cyprian, and then I found out what the actual definition of Cyprian was.
And it's not really what one would call say-so.
Yeah, it's not one that I actually would ever want associated with me, so I'm really glad I mispronounced it as a 12-year-old, and I'm just like 20, like at 29, I'm just like, yeah, just don't ever call me this. You can mispronounce my name any other way, just not that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm sure that anyone who is watching live with us right now is already familiar with you, but for anyone who might be watching on YouTube after the fact, if you could please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Amber Cyprian. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a speedrunner who tends to stay in the Sonic series, but I've speedrun things outside of it, like Klonoa. I've done a little bit of Pokemon. I do Pokemon challenge runs. I do Pokemon randomizers, or, a whole bunch of variety speedrunning. And that's just kind of my thing. I do casual stuff as well, but when I'm not speedrunning, I am the hotfix showrunner, GDQ hotfix showrunner for Never Before Seen, and also I am the head organizer and founder of Fast Pace Events, which is a speedrunning marathon team dedicated to raising money for mental health and LGBTQ plus causes.
Yeah, you're a very, very busy person, and the way I found you actually was a bit interesting that sometimes I will get raided from one stream into another, and that's how I find somebody, but for you, if memory serves, I saw you on the recommended sidebar on Twitch, and I initially clicked on your stream because you were playing Sonic Adventure 2, which is one of my personal favorite games of all time. And I've been a gamer for as long as I can remember, and I've never seen a speedrun that I didn't enjoy watching, but it's not inherently the content that I seek out. But when I clicked on your stream, I was like, oh, they're doing a speedrun of Sonic Adventure 2. Cool. I don't think I've ever actually seen someone speedrun this before. Had a good time, and what really caught me was the fact that you were so engaged, not just with the chat in a normal sense for a streamer, but that you were so good on the self-commentary of how, where, and why you were doing certain things. Naturally, speedrunning takes a lot of concentration, so the fact that you're able to actually do that multitasking is all the more impressive. And one of the things that you mentioned to me that was sort of interesting was, if memory serves, your introduction to speedrunning was also because you happened to catch somebody doing a speedrun of a game that you already had a connection to or some fondness for.
Yeah, that's correct, actually. I think the first speedrun I ever watched on Twitch, I don't remember who it was, but it was someone speedrunning Pokemon Crystal. And while I didn't have a lot of nostalgia for Crystal, I had a lot of nostalgia for Gold version. And I just remember, unfortunately, like, they were on PB pace or world record pace or something like that, and then their run died at Red, but...
Oh no!
Yeah! Like, what a way for my first experience with speedrunning is to be watching someone's unfortunate heartbreak. But that just kind of, like, made me want to see it, another attempt and, like, be like, hey, maybe it'll go better this time. But I had no idea what speedrunning was. I apparently was doing speedrunning from a very young age without realizing it, because my childhood was steeped in Sonic games mostly, and that inherently invites a lot of time attack stuff. So, like, time attacking, or what we call, like, individual levels or ILs in speedrunning. I used to do a lot of ILs of, like, Sonic Adventure 2, which is, like, my old primary speed game. That's actually the first game I really sat down and committed to running. And that was in, like, 2012 or 2011 or something like that. But like Sonic Rush, I actually used to do on the Nintendo DS. I used to do a lot of ILs, like just passing my cartridge back and forth between a friend of mine and myself, like just trying to beat each other's time in like the first couple of levels in that game as Sonic, and it was like really, really fun. And I never knew that I was technically speedrunning at the time, but yeah, so definitely a really funny way for like my first exposure to speedrunning being Pokemon, and then I'm like, I want to play Pokemon, or I want to play a speedrun, like what's that, you know, how do I go about doing that? And most of it was dabbling in Pokemon Blue Randomizer for a while, and then I kind of picked up, I tried to pick up Pokemon Snap 100%, and did a couple runs of that, realized I was too teeny brain and too inexperienced to really keep track of all the routing necessary for that category, and didn't know how to take good notes. I actually found my old notes like last year, and I was just like, what in the blue hell was I writing here? Like, none of this makes sense.
Yeah, and of all the Pokemon games to speedrun, Snap seems like it would be, well, it's obviously very inherently different from most of the other Pokemon games, mechanics alone. From what I know of Pokemon Snap, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would assume that's almost rhythm-based at that point, because from what I understand about it, all the paths for the Pokemon are predetermined, that there isn't the amount of variation, or whether it be, you know, random encounters or stat differences or AI choices that you're going to see in something like a normal Pokemon run, or goodness knows a randomizer run. So for Pokemon Snap, that it would become just whatever you can do to optimize, knowing, all right, I need to get as many pictures in as few runs as possible, and whatever the sort of timing and pacing is for getting your shots. And that's sort of why I compare it to a rhythm game at that point, because it's you know what's going to be going across the screen and when, and it's just getting the timing.
Yeah, so Snap, I actually had to revisit Snap for the first time in like 10 plus years of touching it in the first place for a show also on Games Done Quick Hotfix called Mercy Kill, and I had to take new notes for Snap 100% and gave a very, very generous estimate, because I had no idea how long it was going to take me. And a lot of it is points routing, because you get certain unlocks to progress through the game at certain points values, and just like being able to and also don't mind if my arms do weird things, because my hand track is a little uneven right now, but
your hand tracker is still better than mine.
That's completely fair. But yeah, there's like points routing, there is some RNG in some stages, like mostly trying to get like Dratini to spawn in the river valley, or the valley stage one. Or trying to get Shelter and Cloyster to show up in the actual river stage, stuff like that. So it's just kind of trying to get the best poses possible and exiting out of the stage as soon as you know you have the shots that you need, and knowing your backups, and completely like at higher level you actually want to worry about managing lag, which involves a lot of staring at the ground or staring at the sky, because it's on rails and everything.
Yep. And I never even thought about managing lag by staring at the ground, because at that point you'd have fewer models on screen, so all right, it's gonna, I guess, go whatever amount of milliseconds faster, but that's what you do in speedruns.
Yeah, and like those few frames or whatever that you save, like, you know, by managing lag every so often actually adds up to like seconds, or, you know, in some games cases like minutes, depending on how long the game actually is. So Snap was like definitely one of those things that I didn't really like at like the age of like, what, this was like 18, 19 years old or something like that at the time. Like, it was something that very young adult me didn't really quite comprehend how to manage yet. But I, you know, so I dropped that game and then started to actually like look at Pokemon Blue Randomizer for a while, and then I came upon Games Done Quick because a streamer I was watching at the time, and a person I moderated for like one of their other mods, you know, was like, hey, Games Done Quick is on, like we should check it out. And this was like summer game, it was like the first or second Summer Games Done Quick. It was like the first one that lasted a full week, because Summer Games Done Quick was a weekend at one point and then extended to a week, so it was the first week-long one. and I was watching it while staying with someone in Virginia. And hello, chat. And it was just it was really cool to watch like some games that I grew up in, many games I hadn't grown up playing, being speedrun, and I was just like, this is pretty awesome. And then some time passed, I kept watching speedruns and just doing Pokemon Blue or Crystal, or in one case, one Emerald randomizer race, like with my community. I wasn't very good at speedrunning yet, but that was just kind of like what I was doing at the time, and you know, that in between all of my casual content. And then eventually, I think the following AGDQ, Awesome Games Done Quick, happened on Games Done Quick's channel, and that was raising money for Prevent Cancer Foundation. And I was watching it, and this is when they were still like very much like a Speed Demos archive thing. And Speed Demos Archive is one of the oldest sites you can go to. It's still up today. It's one of the oldest sites that you can go to for old speedruns, and it was originally focused on Quake speedruns. And it's since expanded its scope, but this is like, it used to be a site you'd have to send VHS recordings to.
Oh my goodness.
To be able to submit a run.
Just saying that you have to submit it via VHS, that dates it.
Yeah, like that's how old it is. It definitely predates me by a fair margin in terms of like, you know, old speedrun stuff. But this is when they were still like, you know, we're you know, a team from Speed Demos Archive doing this marathon to raise money for Prevent Cancer Foundation, so on and so forth. And there was also Speedruns Live, which is still used today, but it's not like nearly as in use as it used to be. But it's where you used to do live races, and this is where, you know, single segment speedrunning became really popularized, where Speed Demos Archive had a lot of segmented speedruns, which aren't as common anymore, because those segmented were like you'd re-record a segment over and over and over again until you got it as optimized as you felt it could be, and you'd string those segments together in a recording over the course of, you know, multiple days to get like what is theoretically, you know, the fastest human time possible based on what your knowledge was at the time. And SRL really popularized single segment running as we know it today. And they were doing this thing called seasons, and it was a case of like, we have all these different games, and like, you know, each of them has a category assigned to it, and you can join races every week or so to like race in them and build up points on the leaderboards, and like, you know, you'd get like bragging rights or whatever for it, but it was a way to get yourself speed running, and that was the whole point of seasons. And one of the game choices was Sonic Adventure 2 Hero Side Story. And when I saw that, this was like 2012 or something, I was just like, okay, I've been trying to think what is a game I could conventionally speedrun without it being a randomizer for like the longest time. And I'd been playing Sonic Adventure 2 since it released in 2001, so like 10 or 11 years at this point. And just like, I was like, it's time. I have what I want to learn. And I started doing runs of Sonic Adventure 2 using just the casual knowledge I'd built up over, you know, the last 10 or 11 years of the game existing, from like the Dreamcast release all the way to the GameCube release, which is what I ran on for like a good 4 or 5 years of me running the game before I had a PC, or a laptop rather, that was good enough to run the PC version without a ton of lag and slowdown.
Yeah, for me, I never actually had a Dreamcast, but Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was one of the first 2 games that I owned on the GameCube that I got for my birthday that year. It was that and Super Smash Bros. Melee. Yep.
Like, for me, with GameCube, my first games were Sunshine, Mario Sunshine, and Smash Melee. And then later, I got, very early on, I got Sonic Adventure 2. And, like, I already had the Dreamcast version, so I was really excited about the re-release with the new multiplayer stuff. I had friends that I lived very close with that I got into Sonic because of the multiplayer mode, and they had a GameCube. And that was really, really fun. And just, I just started speedrunning mostly with my casual knowledge, and then eventually went to Speed Demos Archive to find the world record at the time by Sonic Guitar, who is still a legendary name in the community, because like he held the world record for all the stories, or like at least Hero and Dark, probably all stories, and also is known for doing like absurd ring attacks and other things like that on his YouTube and everything. And this was right before Talon 2461 ended up coming in by storm and like, you know, just kind of like optimizing the game a bit better. And Talon was the world record holder around the time I was actively running. Like very new to the game as myself, like myself rather. Talon was not new to the game, but.
And what year was it at this point?
This was like 2000. This was still like 2012 into 2013.
Okay, so this would have been. I'm trying to think if Justin TV would have been around at this point, or if this would have been just YouTube.
This was still Justin TV and YouTube as well. So Justin TV was a thing. Twitch had just become a thing. This was before they shut down Justin TV. I know because I had a account that was actually named after my model. My model's name is -7. First name minus, last name 7. And I have an account somewhere on Twitch. It used to be a Justin TV account, and I ended up having the name changed and converted over to twitch.tv. And this is when they were still doing a bunch of like name change contests or giveaways or whatever before name changing was a regular feature on Twitch. And right now the email that is attached to that Twitch account is hacked, so I cannot actually like hit the confirmation to unlock the account. So I need to find the time to actually sit down and get in touch with Twitch support to try to get that name released back to me.
Get that recovered, yeah.
Yeah. I go by Amber Cyprian. Minus is just my avatar. I don't. They have lore behind them that's old internet roleplay lore from once upon a time. They don't really have a whole lot of VTuber lore. But I don't roleplay as Minus on my own stream, so like I don't, you know, usually do anything like that. But you know, Minus is like the face that I use when I stream, and then this is like this right here, this dragon, which is an asset from. I have to find them in my credits.
Is it bad that I glanced at that thing? I was like, it looks like a Neopet. And I say
yeah,
that
it looks
I say
like
that
a
lovingly.
Neopet.
I played Neopets back in the day. No shade to people who like
Same.
Neopets.
I have played Neopets. I've played Sabeta.org. That was the one I really liked. But let me see if I can find their credit. The username who provided the dragon plushie. It's a free asset. It is from. Oh, those are specs. Where's my credits panel? You can do it. Ichigoma, which is you can find a Ko-fi shop. Like ko-fi.com/ichigoma/shop. You can find these dragon plushies, and they're actually currently representing until I can get around to drawing an actual new redesign for them, and also get the emotes for my emote artist. They're in the process of moving and everything, but this dragon represents another like character that was often associated with Minus back in the roleplay days, named Xavier. So shape-shifting, color-shifting dragon who has a human form that I haven't actually modeled in Vroid yet, because I've been busy doing everything else under the sun.
Yeah, gestures too. Well, we haven't even really scratched the surface of all the things you do.
Yeah. We're actually talking a little bit more about my history with speedrunning at the moment, but
I suppose that does end up leading into it eventually. So
yeah.
Well, before we leave where we were, so you were getting into speedrunning, and you found Sonic Adventure 2 as sort of your game of choice there, and going through the history of some of the bigger name speedrunners at the time. How close or far were you in relativity to, you know, like world records at this time? That I know seconds is quote unquote a lot when it comes to speedrunning, but was it the type of thing that in the broader scope of the speedrunning community, that was it something that you felt, even if you weren't necessarily near the top, could you feel yourself making that progress over time?
So that's actually a really good question. And full disclosure, I don't view speedrunning as like a journey for world records. I never have. It's a very personal thing, and it's always you can compare it to golf if you had to compare it to like a sport or something.
Ooh, I like
track
that analogy.
Or golf. And it's really just a competition with yourself, not necessarily with others, though it's optional to do it, to compete with others. and it's it's really just trying to get your own score or your own time down.
Yeah,
and
that's why PB is such a big thing in
Mhm.
the community. That PB, for those who don't know the jargon, is personal best, because,
Yep.
like Amber was saying, that you can compare yourself if you're a golfer to Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus, but you're probably not gonna be super happy with yourself if you hold yourself to the standards of the literal best in the world. But it's the type of thing that, since you're working with these very concrete metrics, that you can see your own progress over time.
Yes, exactly. And that's actually why we use a program called Live Split that keeps track of a lot of statistics, and a lot of our times. Like when we say we got a gold split, that means that that is the best time that we've ever had in that particular segment of the game. And splits are just like different, like important parts in the game. Like it's personal to each runner usually. So like basically you only ever actually need 2 splits in the game: the very start when you start the timer and the very end when the run ends. And then everything else in between are just like monumental moments that you keep track of, just so you can tell your progress either for yourself or for your audience, just how you're doing compared to like either your personal best or your last run or your sum of average times.
Yeah, there's
like
some
that.
really cool overlays nowadays for speedrunners, and like I said, I don't watch a ton, but whenever I do, it's something that I usually see over on the side, that it'll say, like level or the next boss or something, and it will have that differential of plus 45 seconds or minus 30 seconds or whatever, and it updates as you go, so you can see, like in a track competition for laps or something like that, just where you are in relativity to your own record there. And you actually use that in addition to a lot of other really cool overlays on your own stream that we'll be getting to the Ironmon run that you're into a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to talk about some of the overlays you have for that and your other Pokemon runs.
Oh, absolutely. So like, and I can even, like, because I'm using my personal OBS, I can always showcase that as well, if I can get the programs open. But that being said, like, you were asking me like how far or like close was I to like the top times, and like full disclosure, this is back when Sonic Adventure 2 was timed in real-time attack, or just with a real timer rather than using in-game time or a loadless timer as it uses now. Timing method has changed twice since I started running that game, and it I was a half hour slower than the known world records at the time, like in real time, because like I hadn't learned a lot of the big skips. Some of them I didn't want to actually learn just because I didn't either care, or they were extremely difficult for my execution, or like as I later developed like problems with like my wrists with RSI, arthritis, stuff like that, like it actually would hurt my hands to do certain tech in the game. And it's one of the reasons I actually stopped running the game for like a good, in 2018, if we fast forward a bit, I did stop running the game for a couple of different reasons, one of which was the game was just really rough on my hands. And it's why, like, when I run it now, I just kind of run with my old strats, or, strats is what we call, like, different methods of getting through levels, or, different strategies to complete the game as fast as we personally can. And, it's just, like, I focus more on my health than I do on whether or not I PB. I am a showcase runner these days. And, like, it's more important to me to show, like, hey, you don't have to have a top time to get into speedrunning, because, like, if you, like you've said, if you compare yourself to, like, Tiger Woods in golf, like, you could certainly compare your own scores or your own, like, skill level to a top player, but that comes at the price of potentially not really feeling very good about yourself. And, like, the worst thing that you could do is demotivate yourself by comparing yourself to people who have more time, or, the ability to invest more time in something than you do, right? Same thing applies to art, same thing applies to singing or music or production.
Or streaming.
Or even streaming, like comparing your numbers to that of someone who's already a partner or has been on Twitch for many, many years and takes it full time and has, the ability to do that. A lot of people are juggling a full-time job or multiple jobs with, streaming as a side hobby. And maybe you don't have more than like single-digit viewers, but that's okay, because like, the few viewers that do come in are our core audience, and like that's really what we care about. Like, stream for yourself, and like stream in a way that is healthy for you. And that's still a thing that I struggle with sometimes, is to have a healthy relationship with streaming. And that kind of brings me to where I am with VTubing, because I don't use Facecam. The flags in the background of my room, and also the pronouns I've put up in the corner. It's no, mystery that I am non-binary, and like I personally experience like dysphoria when I'm on camera, because I was AFAB, or what we call a assigned female at birth. So like I was AFAB, and I'm non-binary using they them pronouns. I prefer to present androgynously, which is why I use minus now. But like I used to stream with no face cam or occasional face cam, and usually hand cam or something like that, and it just felt really bad to not be able to emote on stream even like slightly. And I've discovered VTubing through having another speedrunning VTuber called Kyo's Little Monster. He speedruns a lot of Final Fantasy, Ghost in the Shell stuff, mostly Final Fantasy, Nier Automata, so on and so forth. And he was a guest on my show for Games Done Quick Hotfix Never Before Seen, for one of his Ghost in the Shell runs, a standalone complex. And it introduced me to VTubing, and he was like, yeah, no, VTubing is totally possible and like accessible. You just need to like either commission someone, or you can create the art yourself if you're artistic. And I am, like, I used to do a lot of character art, but like it's just like, how do I put it? I didn't realize just how accessible it was until I found Vroid Studio, and then I sat down and made version 1.0 of Minus, which was like not great but good enough to get streaming. And then I came back to streaming around December or so, right before Awesome Games Done Quick 2022, and that's where I actually did my Sonic 4 episode 2 run with my friend Argic, who is like actually in the corner over my shoulder, and like one of the little like square images over here, and we did our run there. That's actually us during AGDQ, and I had just completed this model that I'm using today, because I revamped Minus's hair and everything, using like taking like not inspiration but like learning from another model that had hair kind of layered in a way that I wanted Minus's hair to look, based on like their original design. And it just like, it took me so long to just get the hair right. I redid the textures and everything, and like booth.pm also is the reason why I have these gloves, these nails, and the long sleeve striped shirt as well. Like I have I think all of my booth credits are definitely in my my streaming panels. I have a credit section. I think I need to update it for a couple of things, like the new chair, the Ace Pride chair that I'm using, and stuff like that, because I think I still have the Aragama Witch one listed. But
there's a lot of credits out there.
There's a lot of credits.
If you leave out one or two, it's like, oops, haven't updated that one, because you're switching things around a lot. But
yeah,
your experience with VTubing, I don't usually go into people's origins as a VTuber, but I suppose in your case that it's a very poignant one. It's one that I know is shared by a good number of people, and it's one of the really special things about VTubing, because it allows you to present yourself as you wish to be presented, and it's something that was not very easy or even possible in the past, and it's one of the really cool things. And whether you start as a hand cam streamer, or just a PNG tuber,
yep,
or in this case going with Vroid, that Vroid is a very powerful tool, a very powerful platform if you have even just the time and effort to put in to get your model where you want it to be, or even if you just use a stock model. That the stock models as well have come a long way.
Yeah, and some people also provide free models, either for live 2D or for or for Vroid. They provide like, you know, models based on characters in games like Genshin Impact or Valorant, a few other popular games and stuff like that. Or like, I recently discovered that, you know, there's a VTubing, you know, resources Discord I'm a part of, and I've seen like, you know, a free Pichu model for Live 2D, or, you know, Cat or Oddish for Pokemon as well. My partner
cute,
actually,
but from what I understand, you might not want to monetize streams with those, because then it becomes interesting IP law issues, and neither of us are lawyers, but do be careful with those. Fun for just you know, palling around with friends, or just doing non-monetized stream, but when using ones that are actually based on existing IP, check with your legal representation or something like that.
Yeah, like it's kind of cute to like have it be like a, you know, cameo or like a one-off, like, you know, collab stream or something. Like my partner,
like, you know, throw it up as a redeem and you can have it on screen for a minute or two. And I don't think the Pokemon company is going to hound you for that. Just don't advertise yourself as the Pichu VTuber.
Yeah, exactly. Like my partner's branding is built on Wooper, and he also has a PNG tubing model set up for, you know, using Wooper with a Link hat, because he's a 2D Zelda speedrunner typically, and but he really likes the Pokemon Wooper. So it is a bit of a gray area, so just like, you know, be careful when you do that stuff, but it is there, and, you know, if you want to like take something in the VR chat, you totally could, and just like, you know, have a good time with your friends or whatever. That being said, VTubing is definitely accessible, and I actually recently did like a panel at Offkai Expo remotely with another couple of speedrunning VTubers, Fant_TV or FantTTV. I actually can't remember her handle, but she's another GDQ Hotfix showrunner. She hosts Game Masters, and then we also were with Sakura Tsubasa, who is another live 2D model user, and she does a lot of like randomizers like Ocarina of Time, stuff like that. And we did a panel about speedrunning and VTubing, and like the fact that speedrunning is more accessible than a person thinks, just like VTubing is more accessible than someone might think, and how VTubing is becoming more normalized in speedrunning and everything like that. And I've even had people since my appearance at AGDQ, and also like people noticing me on GDQ Hotfix asking me, how did I get into VTubing, or why did I get into VTubing? And when I explain, you know, part of it is like, I just wanted to be able to emote on camera without having to like, you know, face reveal or anything like that, or like, you know, invade my own or my partner's privacy, stuff like that. Or I just wanted to be able to present in a way that's more in line with how I, you know, identify for myself, and have it be done easier, and not have to worry constantly about how I look on camera, or like, you know, whether or not my hair looks okay, stuff like that. I don't like stressing about like my appearance, and not having to is really, really nice. But it's actually inspired other people to get into VTubing, and people have always asked me, like, one of the questions I get is like, how did you make your background? And that's actually
a very nice background.
It is, and it's actually it's a looping video of a room that is modeled in The Sims 4, actually. And a lot of the custom posters that you see, like there's one just kind of peeking out over the corner of my chair here. There's one over the fireplace, one to the left of that. There's even a couple on top of the fireplace, but they're very, very teeny. They're actually like the game covers for Sonic 3D Blast, which is another game I speedrun, and Sonic 4 Episode 2. And then there's these 4 images right over here. Those are a bunch of memes. So like I introduced Argic here, and Argic was like a close friend of mine, and also part of my staff for fast-paced events. He's my head of hosting. But he has this Sonic suit that is very, very cursed that he uses for charity events or charity like marathons and stuff like that. He uses it as an incentive. He bought this on Amazon, and by the suggestion of myself and a couple of his mods.
Well done.
And has made it a thing. But like the thing that's peeking over my chair is actually a poster promo art for a mod of Sonic Adventure 2, which is how I currently speedrun the game, Dash Adventure 2 by Dash Team and Revenir Incarnate. There's the image over the fireplace. That is Argic, and that I actually found that via Google Images. It was great. And then, okay, so this is this image. Yep. So this is actually because of, and let me get this image here. That's my partner. That's TGH_SR, or more commonly known as Jay, which was funny when the host of Vtuber Talk, Jay, the letter J, not the name, introduced himself to me, and it's just like, I've never worked with someone who has a person named Jay that's important in their life, but you can see the resemblance here, I think. So this image to the left of the one of the fire on top of the fireplace, that's actually Keyta, who's another show host for Games Done Quick, and that was actually an interview, rare face reveal of me, when I did Summer Games Done Quick 2021. My partner TGH and I did a 2 players 1 controller speedrun of Sonic 3D Blast, and we got that accepted into SGDQ. And we pulled an Uno reverse card on Keyta, and someone decided to turn that into a Seto Kaiba meme from Yu-Gi-Oh, which is great. Oh, this is just another funny picture of my partner TGH. That was taken by another one of my my staff for Fast Pace Events, who also does production work with GDQ. And just I threw this in here because it's funny. And it's also one of the if I can hide this really quick. It's actually, if you see like the Yip Yip Martian on my Minus is left, y'all's right. You see the Yip Yip. The one directly across from that is actually not that picture. Come on, you can do it. I forgot I had it set to restart. Is this picture? And then this is the picture directly above it. More Argic. This is actually an emote on his channel, Argic Boss. This is the day he first put on the Sonic costume, and we got this screenshot of him, and it was beautiful.
I don't want to imagine how hot it is in that suit, and also how heavy the headpiece is.
Well, yeah, shockingly, the temperature's not that bad. It's more the, it's definitely the head is, like, very unbalanced. And, that's certainly, like, you can't see it. There's, like, the 2 flappy spikes. Oh, I punched my microphone. There we go. There's the 2 flappy spikes on either side, and then there's, like, a third one behind his head, and, like, that he can't fully lean back on his chair because that spike is there.
Oh,
and
gosh,
it's like,
I hadn't even thought about that.
It's like a giant pillow, and, like, it's just so large and so obnoxious. But yeah, like, that's...
We recommend a VTuber model instead of going with that.
Yes, like, instead of doing this to yourself, maybe try a VTuber model. A lot of people were very disappointed that I didn't have a Tails, like, outfit for my model, and I'm like, I can't model stuff in Blender, are you kidding? Like, have someone do it, and then I'll gladly apply it to Minus. But, that explains, like, the background of, like, you know, all the custom textures that I use. Everything else is, like, mostly base game Sims 4 stuff. I need to finish building a new house that gonna have, like, multiple rooms that I can use. It's also still, like, this is from Valentine's Day. If I were to hide myself, so if I were to hide myself, you can see the Valentine's Day decoration in the background there.
Yep.
And,
can't remember who, but I don't think you're the first guest that I've had who has used a background built in Sims.
It wouldn't surprise me if I'm not the first one, because this idea actually came from another VTuber that is on YouTube named Sapphire, Syafire. I think. But I know that, like, I know her name is Sapphire. I just don't remember the exact spelling. But she actually had the idea of producing backgrounds in The Sims 4, and this actually inspired another person that I got, like, you know, to build a Vroid model for themselves when they don't feel like using Facecam. As an alternative, they actually used Animal Crossing New Horizons to build their background, which was really cool.
Yep,
it could be a still image. Yeah, it could be a still image, or it could be a looped video like what I've got here, because I do have, like, the fireplace, and I have, like, the animated light show going on over here. And that took a little bit of time for me to get animated in Adobe After Effects, but not After Effects, Premiere. There we go. And you can tell it's still snowing when it's in the middle of spring. So I definitely need to re-record at least this room if I don't finish the house I was building for Minus. Like, just so I can also not have Valentine's Day stuff. It was Christmas for quite a while until I switched it to Valentine's Day, and then like that just didn't really
without
go anywhere else.
The heart bear in the background, that it was not blatantly apparent to me that this was a Valentine's background. I just assumed, all right, they like sort of deeper pink purplish, which fits with the pride flag anyways, so it sort of just lined up that way in my head.
Yeah, like I chose this wallpaper by pure accident, not realizing it was basically the Ace Pride flag, which is like the bottom pride flag here. That was basically the Ace Pride flag, and I was like, oh, so it is. Those pride flags, by the way, are actually stock in The Sims, and I thought that was really cool. So, and that they had an NB and a Ace one was really cool, but that we were talking about like my setup here, and like that also brings up like how I handle, like you mentioned like my Pokemon like run like overlays and like custom VTuber overlays and everything.
Yeah, so I guess actually you did a run recently, which I want to shout out because it has something to do with something that was mentioned earlier, and it was your Wooper run. One Whoopie boy taking on the world,
yes.
Which I feel like Wooper has become a broader meme in the Pokemon community.
Yes.
Because Wooper is just adorable little thing. It's not Pikachu in terms of recognition. It's not the one that I think the Pokemon Company anticipated people to gravitate towards, but similar to Bidoof, that people like Bidoof because it's silly and it's doofy. People like Wooper because Wooper is just adorable and happy. Like, Wooper's smile. Can't say no to that smile. And probably the fact that it doesn't have arms also adds to the cute factor. But you did a full run of Pokemon Crystal, and it was just one Wooper versus the world. Did you... I didn't see the beginning of the run. Did you hack in a Wooper so it would be your starter, or was it that... Okay, I wasn't sure if it was that, or if it was just, okay, you need to get a Wooper as soon as possible and then only use it from then on. But you had it from the start, and the interesting part about that one wasn't just the fact that, okay, you're going to have to grind up Wooper to be higher level than most, because when it's a one-on, however many your opponent has, it's going to be more challenging. Plus the fact that Wooper's base stats are not super high. But even getting your Wooper to level 100 isn't inherently going to get you where you need to be, especially when it comes to red. And that a lot of the tinkering came about with the move set, and that was one of the really interesting parts of it, because that, I think, was the crux of the puzzle for the run. Yeah.
So I decided, before I start doing Pokemon Ironmon streams, I want to do this idea I've had for like, a few months now, and it was a Pokemon Wooper only Pokemon Crystal challenge. And like, so my rules were, and actually I think I might still have the rules if I transition over. Let me get to...
You also introduced me to it's an hourly Wooper Twitter account.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing.
It is fantastic. So let me actually disable my my Ironmon stuff. Where is my Ironmon stuff? It's in my...
And I'm actually getting to really see the full overlay that you're working with here, and it varies by game, that when you're doing something for Sonic, that you have the button mapping up. Oh, well, there it is. Right there. Sometimes you'll have just that one. I think on one or two you might have had a different controller layout, or maybe that was just a different VTuber I was watching, but that you'll have that. And like I said, one of the things that you're really good at is talking through things and conveying your thought process for whatever you're going for, especially when it's not a speed run. That you do really well when it's a speed run already, but when it's a turn-based thing like Pokemon, you have that time where you can be stepping through things and not in a rush to actually get the inputs that you not only actually trace through everything, but also sometimes ask Chad, all right, are there any ideas? You as the experienced player that you are usually are a step or two ahead of chat, but that is one of the interesting parts about doing it as a live stream, is that you're able to get that sort of input, and it's still on you to make that ultimate decision, but there's a lot of complexity in all the different ones you do, and obviously we're going to get to Ironmon, and then there's your full randomizers, which are some of my favorites. But back to the Wooper one, it was the move pool at the end of the day that became the real puzzle.
Yeah, so I apparently deleted my rules for another text source, which I am very sad about. But my rules were basically Wooper only in battle. I could not use other Pokemon in battle. I could have HM friends in my party because I kind of needed to.
Yeah,
but
otherwise you're just not going to be able to finish the game.
Yeah, and if I were to like get phased out with like Roar or Whirlwind or something like that, I would immediately switch back to Wooper and not do anything with like the other back party members, if you will. And I sat down and I was like, how bad is Wooper's base stats? And I looked them up.
Well, they aren't good.
And yeah, they're not good at all. For anyone who knows Wooper's base stat total, or for anyone who knows Pokemon, we'll put it this way. Wooper's base stat total is 210. That's really, really low when you have things like Tyranitar with a base stats total of 600, or even Quagsire, the evolution of Wooper, is like base 430. And so it's got like base 55 HP, 45 attack, 45 defense, special attack and special defense are 25 each, and speed is 15. That's how bad Wooper is, all right? He's a teeny little baby. And I was like, okay, what's his moveset look like? And I looked in Generation 2, and you can find them.
That's one of the things that I've really realized whenever I go back. Oh, sorry. One second. Let me actually, I'm just going to make this. Made you a mod, that way you can post links, because I just have the bot set to bonk any links, so that should allow it. There you go. There
we go, yeah. So that's Wooper's moveset there. And that's for Generation 2, which is what I was playing in Pokemon Crystal.
And one thing I've realized looking back at games is the early generation movesets were really bad already.
Oh, yeah. There's some
so
really
limited.
incredible moves, but there's a lot of limitations, yeah. So I was looking, it actually took me the night before I had to do this. I was just like, and you also want to make sure you click the Crystal tab. I realized Gold and Silver actually was way worse. Crystal actually gave it a few more moves. So I went into this, I was like in a call with some friends, and they were like, so you're doing this Wooper challenge tomorrow, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. I should probably do some planning for that now that I think about it. So I looked and I was like, oh god, the moveset is really...
It has a grand total of 3 damaging moves that it learns naturally. Only one of which is water. Water gun with base power 40. Keep in mind, this is Generation 3, so we're going to get into some nitty-gritty jargon here for Pokemon, so I'll try and keep it as accessible as possible, but in Generation 2, there's special and physical stats, and the way that those stats worked were changed in Generation 4. Prior to that, whether a attack was special or physical was based entirely on the type. So water was always special, normal was always physical. In Generation 4 Plus, things have changed to be more flavorful based on the attack. So Fire Punch, while fire initially was a quote-unquote special type, that it's considered a physical move now because you have a punch that is physically hitting. So it makes a lot more flavorful sense nowadays, and that information is also conveyed a lot clearer than it was in the early games. But the bottom line of all this is the moveset's already bad, but it's even more limited because of how some of the mechanics worked in the early generations.
That is correct. So with with Generation 2, like Wooper, I had to look at this and I was like, its special is not very usable. Very early on, I can get away with it a little bit, and I kind of had to because I start with Water Gun. But my first physical move is Slam, and that was basically my move for a while, until I got access to Dig. And Dig was a TM, it was TM28, and Dig became my main, what we call stab, or same type attack bonus move, because Wooper is water ground. And when I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer program, which you can download, like if you Google it, you can download it. It's usually the first result. You can replace starters. You can completely randomize the game and turn it on its head. But I just wanted to play through Vanilla Crystal with a level 5 Wooper as my starter in place of Totodile. And that meant that the rival started with Chikorita, because the rival picks whatever in the vanilla game is,
then becomes 4 times effective.
Yes. So instead of 2 times effective like Totodile, Chikorita versus Totodile would be, I then took 4 times the damage from any like grass moves from Chikorita. So I made this challenge deliberately as difficult as possible. So like it was Wooper only.
The saving grace is that it gets access to Earthquake, one of the most powerful moves in the game. Frankly.
Yeah, it gets access to Earthquake at level 31, which was like amazing. And it's 100 accuracy, 100 base power, and it just like the other thing I had to think about was like move coverage. And I was like, okay, I need to be able to hit everything neutrally. Nothing needs, like, I can't have anything resisting damage because of like their typing or anything.
Yeah, and
so
Earthquake being a ground move means, all right, it can't hit flying, so you need something to at least neutrally hit flying. And fortunately, ground notwithstanding, flying doesn't have many resistances and actually a fair number of weaknesses.
Yeah, that is correct. So I actually used a website that we use for Ironmon to cover, like determine our moveset coverage and what resists us and what doesn't. And I used the Gold Silver Crystal, and it shows, you can tick off the typing of your moves. And it will show you what does or does not resist you, and what what you can hit for, neutral damage or super effective double damage or quadruple damage, stuff like that. And I used that to determine that I had perfect coverage if I had a ground and a rock move at any point in the game. So no matter what else I deleted or what else I taught Wooper, a ground and a rock move would be able to hit everything at least for neutral damage or better.
Now, looking at this link that you have sent, if we're not counting egg moves, there is only one damaging rock move that Wooper can learn via TM, and that's Rollout.
That is correct. So Rollout,
fortunately, you get it pretty early because Whitney gives it to you, because I think if one thing has lived on for Gold, Silver, Crystal, it's that everyone remembers that damn Miltank.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. You don't get Rollout from Whitney in Crystal. That's only Gold and Silver.
Wait,
She
what?
gives Attracting Crystal.
Oh, what the heck?
So she gives Attracting Crystal, but Rollout is actually accessible before you have to fight Whitney. You go up to the national park, and you actually just loop around. Like, so instead of going into the national park, the route right before it, you take a right, right at the entrance to National Park, and then you go, through some grass, you go down, and then you go left, and then you're in like this place behind a fence along the route that you had just traveled north through. And there's a item ball there, and that is your TM for
at least
Rollout.
it's there, and it's not like hidden away in Victory Road or something.
Yes. So Rollout was accessible actually earlier than before, which was really nice. And Rollout for a little while was my rock move of choice, because the next option I have is Hidden Power. And let's talk about Hidden Power works a little bit. So Hidden Power is typically, it's classified as a normal move that has, a base power of like 60 or something, right? Or like a hidden base power or whatever. And the move description is power is determined, like, it varies by the Pokemon or whatever, right? And What that means is that there's these hidden values every Pokemon has called DVs in Generation 2. Most people in modern Pokemon know them as IVs, which are individual values. They determine stat growth potential. In Generation 3 onward, they range from 0 through 31, with 31 being the best for that stat, and it allows it to reach its maximum potential. In Generations 1 and 2, they're called determinate values, and they are ranged from 0 to 15, and they determine a few different things, including gender, shininess, and also your hidden power. And your hidden power is determined based on your attack and defense DVs. Nothing else matters, right? And also its base power is based on these like determinate values as well. So when I had to hack in Wooper via the Universal Pokemon Randomizer,
You had to make sure that you were manipulating the DV such that it would allow hidden power to become rock. And actually, like, I saw at least 2 streams of this run, and I feel kind of silly right now for the fact that I forgot hidden power, because I was watching, as I was looking through this list, I was like, all right, Rollout's the only one that's listed as rock, but I don't remember Rollout being on that move set, and I was just blanking on hidden power. But you're right that hidden power is the challenge runner's best friend, because it lets you have the potential for any type, however unnatural it might be for a Pokemon normally, because every Pokemon can learn hidden power.
Yep, every Pokemon can learn hidden power, and its max base power is 70, and its accuracy is 100. And rock-type moves, aside from Ancient Power, are known for being notoriously inaccurate. And so stuff like Rock Slide or even Rollout has base 90 accuracy, stuff like that. But Hidden Power Rock required a DV attack of 12, defense of 13, and then everything else could be a perfect 15. So I actually went back and like when I picked up Wooper and I saved the game, I can then allow myself to use a save editor. Full disclosure, I used a save editor to give Wooper the best possible DV, so it actually had a shot at completing this challenge. This is a thing that is generally accepted among solo challenge runners, especially YouTubers, to allow the challenge run to be done like
feasible. That a lot of these things are done to be very challenging, very difficult inherently, but obviously the goal is to actually complete the challenge, that you want to make it possible, you want to make it viable. And when the options are so limited, a base 70 power 100 accuracy move in the spectrum of Pokemon moves is pretty average. That it's not weak, but it's certainly not strong. It's nothing that you would call OP. And when you're saying, all right, I have access to a single Pokemon, and like we said, they normally have 3 damaging moves and then this very limited pool of TM moves, that I think it's pretty safe to say that without the permission to use hidden power here, that this run, if it doesn't become impossible, it becomes monumentally harder.
Yes. So actually, it was Hidden Power Rock that was the key to being able to beat Red. So Wooper learns a couple other moves, including Sludge Bomb, which allowed me to beat Meganium, held by the rival later on in the game. It actually got to the point where, like, for a while, my moveset was Earthquake, Hidden Power Rock specifically, and then, like, I forgot what the other two. Sludge Bomb and something else? Ice Punch.
You changed it in the Elite Four, because I remember seeing that run, because it then became Rest and Sleep Talk.
Yes, so when I got to Lance, I managed to get through all the Elite Four, and I got to Lance, and I could not beat Lance because his Dragonites and Gyarados had access to Hyper Beam. And I had no way to recover, because that's another rule of my challenge, is no items in battle, including held items. Now, if I were to do a solo challenge all over again, I would allow the use of held items, but the only held item I was allowing myself was the Everstone, so I stayed as Wooper and didn't have to constantly cancel my evolution.
Every level,
Yeah, and when I play Pokemon and I start just doing all the trainer grinding, because a lot of these runs is grinding through trainers and making sure I could hit like the level, points that I needed to be able to complete the challenge. And this is true of Ironmon as well. I tend to kind of autopilot and I don't pay attention. I'll scroll through Twitter or I'll look at Twitch chat. I'm not looking at my game screen. And I know for a fact with, you know, how I am, I would very easily forget to cancel an evolution, and then I'd have a Quagsire on my hands.
And then you'd have to, you know, go back to your previous save, and it's just a headache. So
yeah, and who knows when
Everstone
the last time I
provides
saved
literally
was.
nothing in battle. It is now used for breeding purposes, that it allows you to pass certain either abilities. I think it lets you pass nature, possibly stats, but in battle it does nothing. So the spirit of your rule was very much preserved.
Yeah, so aside from Everstone, I didn't allow any other held items or, you know, healing items in chat. I didn't allow battle items like X attack, X special, which would have made this challenge way easier, by the way. I learned the value of X items through Randomizer, through stuff like that, and learning like some speed tech there. Is X items are very important, even though, you know, playing casually, I always thought they were useless. It got to the point where I was just like, okay, I need access to recovery, but I can't be a sitting duck, because what rest does is it forces you to sleep for 2 turns straight.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm just a sitting duck, and I have like no other way to recover, no way to deal damage, no way to just like, you know, cope with the Pokemon in front of me.
But Sleep Talk is something that what it does is you use that. It fails if you're not asleep. But if you use it while you're sleeping, it will then use randomly one of your other moves.
And in Generation 2, that can include rest, by the way.
Yeah, which is a bit silly. I think they patched that out at some point in later generations.
Yeah, I want to say at least Gen 3 it no longer rolled rest, but at least if it did roll rest, it would reset your sleep counter back to 2, and it would also still recover you, which was cool.
Yeah, so at least it wasn't
the worst
a
thing in the world.
Dead turn there, so yeah.
So, like, I would at least get a little more recovery, and I can then reliably know what my sleep counter was at. But, so my moveset became Earthquake, Hidden Power Rock, and then Rest Sleep Talk. And if I rolled Earthquake, I was an unhappy person, because most of Lance's team is flying type. But Hidden Power Rock, on the other hand, hit all the dragon stuff for neutral, hit Gyarados super effectively, Charizard super effectively, and Aerodactyl super effectively, which was really, really important. And it was actually, I was like, I guess I could go reteach Ice Punch if this really doesn't work, but I'm gonna make the call. I'm gonna do Rest Talk for Lance, and then, like, if it doesn't work, I'll reset my save, do the whole league again after going to get another Ice Punch TM, and I really don't want to do that. And so I actually managed on my first try to get through Lance with the Rest Talk like solution, and that became what I had to run with in Kanto for all of like that entire region, right? And Kanto wasn't super difficult because Rest Talk and then Earthquake plus Hidden Power Rock offered perfect coverage, so nothing resisted me, and many things were hit super effectively, which was cool.
Then you got to Red.
Yeah, I got to Red, and I was like levels either very early 80s or very high 70s. And I got to Red, and Venusaur became the problem. And so
it's
Pikachu...
just Meganium 2.0 here, that it's going to hit for 4 times damage. You can't let that thing touch you.
Yep, and it wants to use Solar Beam by default, because that is its strongest grass move, and Red's good AI tells it, okay, this is my most powerful move that is a grass-type move that is super effective against this Pokemon in front of me, therefore I'm just going to spam it.
One thing I sort of realized after the fact was, if the moveset for Venusaur had been anything else that was grass, that wasn't Solar Beam, that if it had been Razor Leaf or something,
I had Giga Drain too.
Okay, so all right, so it was because the AI went for the strongest one specifically, but it did still have a second one, because I was going to say, if the AI had a solution that put it to anything that wasn't that, the run might become impossible, because like we said, Wooper's base speed is 15. It's gonna go last, and you can't survive a hit from this Venusaur using a grass-type move. So you basically have this one turn to deal with Venusaur.
Yep. So, like, the easy answer would just be like, oh, I just use, like, you know, an X item, and that that kind of like fixes my problems, because here's the thing: red opens with a level 81 Pikachu, and it knows Charm. It knows Charm, Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Quick Attack. So it can't actually really hurt Wooper physically, because it has Quick Attack. It doesn't have great attack, a great attack stat, even at level 81. And its Thunderbolt and Thunder don't affect Wooper because it's ground type. So, cool, Pikachu is basically a sitting duck. However, Charm is what it would open with, and what does Charm do? Charm lowers your attack by 2 stages out of a possible 6. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm a physical attacker. Charm really, really hurts.
Yeah, you're just that you have the sitting duck, but the one thing it does is debuff you.
Yeah, and that made it further impossible. Even with my attack stat not being altered, I cannot one-shot Venusaur. It was like, with either Earthquake or Hidden Power Rock, it was a 3-hit KO at best with Earthquake, I think, and then like a 6-hit KO with Hidden Power Rock. With unboosted stats, let alone the debuffs. The debuffs made it even worse.
But
so
then
there was
with
no
Charm
way.
coming into play and the idea of stat manipulation being brought up, that sort of led your thinking to the solution that was ultimately found for that last moveset.
Yes. So what happened was, when I realized after like attempt 5 or something that I was not going to get through red at whatever level I was and with the moveset I had, I was like, okay, Wooper has to be level 100 for this. So I started grinding mindlessly, and because I can do that mindlessly and like kind of, I started looking at like Wooper's moveset. I looked at, I was using a Smogon damage calculator for Generation 2. And that's like, you know, for their Pokemon Showdown, like competitive battling thing. And I was just like, it assumes that like the stats are maxed out and everything, and I'll link that here as well. So I use this damage calculator using Gold, Silver, Crystal. So if you click the GSC thing, and then I typed in my moveset on the left as Pokemon 1, and I gave like Red's I didn't know what the DVs for red was, so I assumed perfect DVs because the AI is cruel, and just kind of assumed that I was gonna get hecked no matter what I did. But I used that to determine that I could, in fact, hit the Venusaur if it had, assuming it had perfect stats at level 77, using Hidden Power Rock, if I could boost my attack enough. Right? And the only attack boosting move that Wooper has access to is Curse. And that's a TM that you pick up in the Celadon Mansion at night. And I actually made sure that I started my playthrough at night with the intention of picking up Curse so that it was an option to me.
Because Curse is a very powerful stat move.
Yes.
That it increases your attack and defense and lowers your speed, but Wooper's already slow as a snail anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how slow I am. So if I can bulk myself up physically, both attack and defense, things aren't really going to hurt me. So I was like, okay, here I came up with a few different movesets I could do, and then I pushed myself to level 100 offline because I was like, I don't want to put you all through the endless grind from like level 80 whatever to I think I had to hit like 92 because I had 8 rare candies at the time. So I was like, I just need to hit level 92, but I don't want to put you all through the like couple hours of grinding it'll take to get there. So I cut stream because I'd already been on for a while, and I was like, I'm gonna go to level whatever 92 offline, and then I'm gonna come back. We're gonna start with a new move set, and then we're gonna try red. And I expected this to take like the following stream to take at least an hour of tweaking my move set and getting good luck in such a way that it would allow me to actually finish the run. Instead, what had happened was I got the Curse TM. I also picked up Ice Punch just in case, and I was like, okay, we're at the point where I need to I need to make some choices here, and if I cannot beat red with this these movesets that I've got, I will start lifting the limitations I put on myself one by one, because that would start with like one of my other rules was, unless I'm level 100 and still cannot beat the game, I will not use the TM for Double Team. Because every Pokemon can learn Double Team, but Double Team is boring because it raises your advantage.
Yeah, it's
other moves miss.
Yeah, Double Team is a very common tactic that you will see a lot of people do in various types of Pokemon challenges, whether it be something like a Nuzlocke or an Ironmon, because, well, if your opponent can't hit you, that lets you do whatever you want.
Yeah. And it's not a guarantee that they won't hit you, but if you get to +6 evasion, which is the max, it's very unlikely they'll hit you. My favorite moments are when you do like +3 evasion or something, or even +6 evasion, you still get hit and die, and that's always very fun. Good old RNG. But I was like, okay, I'm going to delete I'm going to delete Sleep Talk for Curse, and keep Rest so I have access to recovery, even if I have to be a sitting duck. But I'll hopefully, aside from Venusaur,
up at that point,
be bulked up. Yeah, aside from Venusaur being a problem and possibly Espeon, like, it should be okay. And
lo and behold,
I beat Red on my first shot. Like,
and you even ran
out,
it back. You ran it back because you beat Red. And I think Wooper had something of 20 to 30 HP left, that there was just enough pings from Pikachu's quick attacks. Charizard was able to get in something, and just the damage that Wooper took was substantial. It wasn't like you got out unscathed, but it was almost what felt like a margin of error type of thing. And that was something, as soon as you beat Red, that you were, like you said, very surprised, because you had already been saying, okay, don't know if this is going to work. These are the contingencies, and this is how I'll approach it if it doesn't work. So to get it on the first go was surprising me. And the first thing you said was, okay, I'm going to run that again to see if that's a fluke. And you had one wiped run because there was a crit. But
there was a crit, and I can't do anything about that.
Yeah. But then on the third go-through, again, it was pretty much the same outcome, where you won, and Wooper was very low in the red but survived. And there you have it. Pokemon Crystal can, in fact, be beaten with one Whoopie boy.
Exactly. Like, it was actually something I was kind of proud of, not gonna lie. Like, it was just like, I did that challenge partly because I was inspired a few months ago by a YouTuber called Scott's Thoughts that does a lot of Pokemon Yellow, some Generation 2 and a little bit of Generation 3 solo challenges, mostly Pokemon Yellow, because that's where most of the AI documentation exists in Pokemon right now. And it was just like really interesting to listen how he would plan out these challenges with various Pokemon. Like, he recently just released a video like yesterday with Diglett only in Pokemon Yellow, and like how he goes through, like, he measures by metrics like time and stuff. I didn't time my run or anything because I didn't want to, but like he tracks like real time, resets, stuff like that, game time, and he'll do a playthrough with some planning about how to like approach the moveset as best as possible, and then take note of the pain points in the run. Like, okay, Lorelei in the Elite Four was really, really difficult. I have to figure out how to make that easier. How can I make, the Brock fight faster or the Misty fight faster, stuff like that. And just watching him do a second playthrough, like, very abbreviated, mostly highlighting the pain points that were in the previous run, and just like kind of like identifying like how a Pokemon can best function in the game, like against the AI and everything, is just like really, really cool. And I was like, I want to do that, but I want to do it with Wooper because my partner really likes Wooper. He wouldn't do it. And I was like, heck it, if he won't do it, I'll do it. Wooper's not my mascot, but you know what? That's okay. And I did that. And then as soon as I did that, I was like, well, I guess I'm starting Pokemon Emerald Ironmon.
Yeah, and that brings us to where you are right now.
Yes.
In Ironmon, I feel like Nuzlocks, at least in the gaming community, have become mainstream understanding of you can catch one Pokemon per route, and if it dies, it dies. Dragon Ball Geeka 1243, thank you for the follow.
Yeah, so
now Ironmon though takes the Nuzlocke formula and ramps it up even further. And there's a couple different flavors of Ironmon. You're doing the base rule set, and I actually have it here. So you have all of the normal rules for a Nuzlocke, but on top of that, you have Randomize the Game, which includes all Pokemon items and move sets. So I feel like randomized Nuzlocks are becoming more common in terms of basic randomizers, where you can find any given Pokemon on any given route, but to randomize moves and abilities on top of it is a whole, like, that's a magnitude of madness put on top of it. But the other interesting part here is you can only catch or kill one per route, so you can't grind with wild Pokemon. You can't rebattle trainers. You can't go to shops for anything except Pokeballs or Repels. So it goes from the normal challenges, but the big thing here is that you can't grind. So there is a limited XP pool that you can get. So if you get to the later part of the game and your best Pokemon wipe, you might just be done for the run because there's no way that you can use one of the other Pokemon that you have and level it up enough. Oh, and the other one is that you can only have up to 6 Pokemon at a time. So when you catch a 7th Pokemon, you have to put something in a box, and it's not like a normal Nuzlocke where you can go in and switch something out, that it is one team at a time. When something is in a box, it is as if it had fainted.
Mm-hmm. It's basically, it's based on Iron Man challenges in like RuneScape. The creator of the challenge, I Ate Your Pie, is a streamer I've watched for many, many years, probably as long as I've been on Twitch. And I discovered him through Paper Mario speedrunning, and it was just like, he did Paper Mario, he did like Kid Chameleon, he did Super Mario RPG speedruns and stuff like that, but now he does a lot of binge variety stuff, and like, I mean that literally, like, he finds something he likes, he will binge that till he doesn't want to binge it anymore and then move on. But he's also doing this really, really cool challenge, or like thing called the Year of Challenges, where he gives himself some really insurmountable things, really difficult things to do in video games, because he loves challenge runs now. I just, like, watching him like grow from speedrunning to variety binging is like very, very inspirational. But his Year of Challenges raises money for Action Against Hunger. For every challenge he completes, he donates $1,000 to the charity, and he, like, you know, implores people to do the same. Like, you know, it's like, hey, if I beat a challenge, you can throw down maybe not $1,000, but even $1 or $5, and stuff like that. And I think that's really, really inspirational. But he designed Ironmon because he likes Pokemon. He doesn't like Nuzlocke for streaming. He finds all the grinding and stuff to be kind of boring. But he used to do like challenge RuneScape runs where it was permadeath, or also known as Iron Man. And
obviously Ironmon plays very well into that pun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I also forgot the most important rule of the Ironmon challenge, and that's don't be rude. You have to talk to your mom when you start the journey, otherwise that's just rude and everything is invalid.
It's facts, and like, this was actually designed around Fire Red Leaf Green, and so like that's the Generation 3 remakes of Red, Blue, Yellow, for folks at home. And Fire Red Leaf Green is very, very well designed for Ironmon. Other generations or other games like Emerald or Heart Gold Soul Silver, they are more of a not challenge, but they've got variables to them that, like, you know, kind of don't always line up with the base rules. The base rules are based on Fire Red Leaf Green, and if we take a look at, you're gonna see we have to do this, and I have to go to my 3x2 game scene. And then let me also let me enable this. There we go. So this is my typical setup for Ironmon, right?
Yeah, and we have the really nice layout here with stats and moveset, and that's something that I really appreciate as a viewer, because obviously that information is not always going to be on stream in game. So being able to see that, especially if you're just tuning in and saying, all right, what are we going with right now? What is the attempt number? Because one of the things of Ironmon is you're expected to fail many times in the early game. That in some ways it is finding a viable seed, and also just hoping that you don't get something that is a bit too absurd early on, like, oops, Randomizer gave you an opposing electrode which used explosion.
Yeah, and so like the tracker above my head is like what you typically see on my stream, and it is made by a person named Dementio in the Ironmon community, and this is available for download on their GitHub, but also in the Ironmon Discord. And I've basically screen capped bits of it and moved it around to fit with my info.txt file, because my entire like overlay when I stream is based on like, you know, a computer desktop. It was just like really cool, a cool aesthetic that I wanted to go with, and so I did. But oh, thank you whoever just followed me. But that being said, like you have all of the information. The ability's blanked out just because it hasn't read it yet. It would read it as soon as I send the wheezing that I've been running with into battle. And it, you know, tracks my stats. It includes like, you know, stat decreases. It'll also show the enemy's information if I were in a battle, which I'm not right now. I'm obviously just showing the title screen. So it's reading my save file for whatever my first slot Pokemon is. And it gives a lot of like information, like what item I'm holding, whether or not I evolve, and when, what my current level is, and, you know, how many moves I've learned through level up, which is like how you mainly get moves in Ironmon, and especially in later difficulties, which is like Ultimate or Kaizo. That Kaizo difficulty is what I Ate Your Pie streams, and it is not for me, but Kaizo only allows level up moves plus whatever TMs you're given by the gym leaders. And you may not be able to like actually learn them, and you might look at my wheezing stats and be like, that's not normal for a wheezing. Well, of course it's not. One of the settings that we use for Ironmon randomizing is we actually randomize stats completely. And
I remember I was watching the VOD from yesterday's stream of it, and you came up against Moltres, because that can happen. You're not allowed to actually have legendaries yourself unless one of your Pokemon evolves randomly into it. But enemies can. And there was this Moltres, and I forget what you used against it, but you knew immediately, oh, this thing has a randomized high defense stat, because I think you used a rock move on it, and it did not do much.
Yeah, actually, I think I used either Strength or Shadow Ball, because those are my two main attacking moves right now. Silver Wind is a bug-type move. I want nothing to do with that on a flying fire type Pokemon. And when I realized, oh, my main attacking move is not going to do a whole lot, it did like maybe a quarter of its health, if that, probably a little less. That's where actually Super Fang in my moveset currently comes in, and it actually allows me to cut through steel types, which I can't really hit very well right now. Or cut through very thick Pokemon that have like absurd defenses for no good reason other than that's what the randomizer gave them. And
another fun randomizer thing that happened, one that I thought was actually a really cool display of just technical, well, I don't even know if it's necessarily technical knowledge, but situational knowledge and awareness, was there. You were in one of the gyms, and a Mightyena randomly used Destiny Bond. And Destiny Bond is it's a move that's been around since Gen 1. Usually it's on ghost types, and when it is used, if the Pokemon that used it is knocked out that turn, then the Pokemon that knocked it out is also knocked out. And that is a terrifying thing. Like, that's top 5 fears for someone who's doing an Ironmon or a Nuzlocke type of run, that it's a Destiny Bond Pokemon, a Pokemon with Explosion and Arena Trap. Those are one of just the scariest things. And you did what I thought was just, I assume that this is something that others do as well, because it makes perfect sense, but it was the type of thing that I hadn't seen this particular solution before. That one way that you can get around a Destiny Bond trap is just use a non-damaging move that turn. But if you don't have a non-damaging move that you can use at that point, and you know you're going to knock it out, you threw a Pokeball at it, because that takes your turn.
Yep, so in trainer battles, throwing Pokeballs do nothing. You waste a Pokeball, the trainer blocks the ball and tells you, don't be a thief.
Don't be a thief.
And and like, I was at the point where I needed to save the power points of my moves, because like I don't have the greatest like amount of PP here. And I could have used Super Fang, because Super Fang will generally not knock out a Pokemon. It reduces the exact
half,
HP
so
that they have by half.
Unless it has 1, you're not going to knock it out.
Yeah, and I was either out of Super Fang, or I was very low on Super Fang, and I needed to save it for other things that actually matter. And the benefit of my wheezing being as fast as it is. Its speed is 189. The benefit of this is that I go first. So if a Pokemon is going to use Destiny Bond, which actually came out in Generation 2, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said 1, but like I think only
it might have been. It might have been.
Because I remember Wobbuffet used it on me once in a cave, and I was very upset.
It's mostly known for, like I said, Ghosts and Wobbuffet, and you want to talk about the Arena Trap Destiny Bond strat, that's Wobbuffet for you.
Yeah, so like Shadow Tag Destiny Bond is awful, but there was this Mightyena, like you had said, that used Destiny Bond, but because it went second, as long as the Pokemon's last used move is Destiny Bond, if it dies, it takes its attacker with it. And so if it goes second and then I go first on the next turn and kill it, I go down, right? And I have to wait for Mightyena to use a different move so that it's no longer in a Destiny Bond state. So throwing a Pokeball, because I knew I would go first otherwise, is the perfect way to do that while conserving Super Fang. So I don't have to actually use it up. And Super Fang is very important for Steelix, which is currently very, very thick. And I don't have a way to deal with it right now. And it has Dig, so the battles take forever, and Pokeballs are how I'm saving on my PP right now, and it's just like, God, this is awful.
Like, these are the niche decisions, the different strategies that you have to use in these types of runs that, while you specialize in speedrunning for stuff like Sonic, I suppose the term would just be that you are a challenge runner for Pokemon, because like you said, you don't time your Pokemon runs for Wooper or for the Ironmon run, but that you do stuff like this. And I suppose to bring this sort of full circle, like I mentioned, the second stream of yours that I saw was one of Emerald as well, because Crystal, and that is your full randomizer, and those I don't see very often, and they're some of the most fascinating ones, because a full randomizer run is when it's not just, all right, the Pokemon are randomized and whatnot, but that the items are randomized. And it's not just the TMs, but the HMs and the badges. And
there we go.
Yes. And you have a wonderful overlay here, but it's the type of thing that when you encounter a random item on the ground, it could just be a potion, because there's plenty of those lurking around, but it's, all right, hey, I just picked up Surf. That's great. That unlocks most of the game. Oh, wait, I haven't picked up the badge that lets me use Surf outside of battle yet. There are actually... does your randomizer account for prohibiting impossible seeds, or is it possible to just have impossible ones?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the randomizer is designed to not produce impossible seeds. It's certainly like a very rare instance where it can, but generally speaking it doesn't. And for Crystal, and I actually have a video on my highlights that actually is a tutorial. It's in my chat commands as well. It's like a Crystal Rando or something like that, that actually shows how I prepare for a full item randomizer, because there's two programs you need. You need the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, which is how I did the Wooper only challenge. It's how we prepare a seed for Ironmon in like Pokemon Emerald or whatever. But for Pokemon Crystal, we can do it as well, and we can completely randomize all the Pokemon. We do keep it within its vanilla statistics, so like all the stats are the same, but the moves are like that it learns are random and stuff like that. And its TM and HM compatibility is full compatibility. Then we have to run it through another program after we randomize the ROM for Pokemon stuff. We randomize it for key items and badges and full items. And there's different rule sets or different randomizing sets that you can do that will change like what is randomized and how. And I'm actually using a program called Emo Tracker that has a full map that shows like all the possible locations I can go to or can't go to, or fully complete versus not being able to fully complete. And what those items are in vanilla, such as like, hey, in vanilla your mom gives you the Pokegear, and that won't be the Pokegear typically in a randomizer run. It will often be like it'll often be something like, let's say, the bicycle. It could be the bicycle or something like that. And the nice thing is that I've actually divided my overlay up into like different ways. Like, this is not how the standard emo tracker overlay looks, I promise. I actually screen capped it multiple times and have it like all over the place in categories that make sense. Useful items are things that either unlock other checks or allow me to actually complete the game. What we call checks are, you know, places that we can go based on the items that we have collected so far. And like, as I collect them, I will light them up, stuff like that. Useless items are things that I never ever want to see, and they are not useful to me, like the Pokedex or the Silver Wing. Like, they don't help my progression, they don't help me beat the game. TMs and HMs are obviously mostly mandatory, including Rock Smash. Rock Smash unlocks other checks, so it is useful. It is not mandatory,
and actually, you
though.
just used a term that I want to call out because it's something important, but also speaks to the depth of knowledge that you have and that is required for this type of run, and that is checks. Because in game logic, the way that the program is written, certain things don't happen, aren't available, or don't appear until these certain checks in the game's logic are satisfied. And this is usually a very normal thing because it's just, all right, as you complete the game, you're going to complete the checks naturally, and it's just to make sure that you don't encounter something earlier than you're supposed to make sure, you know, the radio tower isn't taken over until you get to that point in the game. But when you're doing a full item randomizer, a lot of those checks are actually bound to the obtaining of items, because that's when you get access to something, or that in a normal run would indicate you have achieved a certain thing, because usually it's a badge or an HM, or you have certain achievement things of like beating Team Rocket there. And since those are now part of the randomizer, you actually have to keep track of it. So one of the really fun things for me as a viewer when seeing this type of stream is the way, I know you have a guide up, but you've now run these enough that you intuitively know a good amount of these checks, and you'll just say, okay, we picked this up, that unlocks this check, so now I can go back to Ekrutik and do this other thing there. Or, okay, we beat this gym, but we didn't get the badge, and we got this HM, though, that unlocks that check. And keeping things, there's so many intertwining webs here that make it so complex, but it's a very fun watch. And even if you don't know all of this nitty-gritty information, as long as you know the base game, that you can still watch this and have a blast.
Oh yeah, and like there is a bit of a learning curve, but like there's actually a PDF guide somewhere on that Discord. That Discord is a bit of a mess. The Pokemon Crystal Cinco Bingo Discord, which if you Google the big list of video game randomizers, click the what is likely to be the first result, you will find the invite link to that. I don't know any other way to like tell you how to find this Discord. That is a what's it called? One second. It is called a I've distracted myself. This is what I do. Oh, here it is. Here's what I wanted. Okay, cool. It's got a guide that's a PDF, and it tells you the general flow of what you should do in a, you know, some of the easiest difficulties of this thing. And if I actually go, let me change over to, one second. Let me just actually want to change sources, because I actually want to show y'all the, go back over here. This is actually my program that I use, and you can see my mouse now. This is Emo Tracker, and this is the full map. And if I click this gear here, I have all these different difficulties, right? And most people I recommend start with like easy and classic, or, you know, key item randomizers, where it only randomizes the key items. So like your HMs, it won't touch the badges, basically. It will not touch the badges, and it has certain other rules in place. And the program that like lets you do this like will, you know, tell you, you know, what is and isn't touched and what not. And you'll see like all these different squares on the map, and it's like, well, what the hell do these mean? And this is a case where, like, you know, New Bark Town, it tells me all of the different possible items I can get from there relative to my difficulty. So if I did easy classic key item, you'll see I have far fewer checks available to me at the beginning of the game than if I do what I currently do now. I do extreme full item, and that opens up way more checks on the map at the very beginning of the game. And this lets me tell, like these Pokeballs tell me whether or not I've checked items. Orange on the map means I cannot fully complete this area, because I'm missing other things that are flags that the game is looking for. Like, if I defeat the Elite Four, this check becomes available in New Bark Town. Or if I get the Rising Badge, I get this item here. Or if I give Elm the Mystery Egg, if I click the Mystery Egg, suddenly this check is no longer in red and grayed out. I can actually do it now, right? And so it actually lets me do all of that. And I've gotten to the point, like, I used to live and breathe by this map, and now I just have moments where I stop and, like, just make sure I haven't missed anything. That's it, because I generally know the flow of the game now and what unlocks what. But I have these here. I have this map here as a sanity checker for myself. Just because
even if you have,
things.
That it's now at the point where a lot of it is, like you said, muscle memory. But goodness knows, there's so many variables here that it's nice to have something that all right, this is the absolute truth of the game state right now.
Yeah, like, I actually had a seed where here in Azalea Town, like, you have to do the first thing you can do is the Slowpoke Well. So, like, if I go to the Slowpoke Well and get the ground floor item, let's say it's useless, and I defeat Team Rocket, that then unlocks some checks in Ilex Forest, but also, I have to talk to Kurt, and that's an item, and I forgot to do that, and I was missing a very important item. I think I was missing, like, Cut or something? I was missing something.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, because I forgot to talk to Kurt, and I just went and fought Bugsy. And I was just, like, looking, and I apparently had completely missed talking to Kurt, and I had to look in what we call a spoiler log, where when we generate the seed, it generates a spoiler log that tells us the solution to, the randomizing. So if we really feel like we've completely gotten ourselves stuck, or if we feel like the seed is actually unbeatable, we go to the spoiler log and it tells us, okay, here's the solution for all the useful stuff. So, like, if I'm actually, this is my desktop, so I can actually grab,
and I love that the programs being written for these ROM hacks are at this point that not only have people figured out how to access these things, that they have figured out how to manipulate these things, that they've figured out how to write a randomizer such that it shouldn't create an impossible seed, but then also the smart check of when you generate a seed that it generates the spoiler log. That way you have it's sort of the proof of work there, or it's the receipt.
Yeah, so, like, this here is, like, the spoiler log of the key item randomizing from the last seed I did, because I've been binging on challenge runs lately instead of randomizer. So May 1st was the last time I did a full item randomizer. And this tells me what the RNG seed is so that someone else can reproduce it if need be. But, like, it tells me here's the solution for all the useful items, like where they are, which item they are, and stuff like that. And then there's the useless stuff, which, it's like, hey, if you went and fought Falconer, or no, Bugsy, he'll give you a max potion, and that's it. Or if you go to the bike shop, he'll give you a gold berry. And, like, those things aren't useful at all. Whereas, like, everything above the useless stuff, like, line here, is all the stuff that we actually care about. It's like, hey, if you're looking for the basement key, check the Radio Tower Sunny Day TM, and so on and so forth. And you should only look at this if you really feel like you've lost the run, if you really feel like it's unbeatable, and, like, this will tell you whether or not it is possible through what we call the logic of the randomizer.
If you had the technical knowledge to write a program that could manipulate any Pokemon game to create whatever challenge you want that hasn't been done before, what challenge would you create? Assuming that, anything's on the board, and we'll say that the technology and the coding knowledge is yours, you're able to do this. What type of challenge do you want to either, take on yourself, or do you think would be fun to see others take on?
That's a really good question, and one that I don't think I have a very good answer for, because I tend to not design challenges. I tend to pick them up and, like, maybe I refine them for my own enjoyment or something, but, like,
That's
I
fair.
pick up
It's also a big
the
question
baseline.
saying, tell me what you would invent that hasn't been invented before. There's a lot of
But
answers there.
yeah, one thing I've been talking about on and off, and this is because of my unfamiliarity with the series, is there's the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, and I know that there's a
Mm.
randomizer for Explorers of Sky. I don't know if there is one for Red or Blue Rescue Team, but I know that there is one for Explorers of Sky. And I would really like, and even if there is no randomizer, I would really like to design something like an Iron Man or Iron Mon variant for Mystery Dungeon. And I think that requires me to actually really sit down and play the series, at least the first 2 entries, and figure out like what makes it tick. Like how much limitation can you impose in that game without completely making it unbeatable? And that's kind of the thing. And I don't know if the randomizer for Explorers of Sky, I literally found that earlier this week. I've never played through Explorers of Sky, and I've barely scratched the surface of Red Rescue Team, let alone the remake that was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX on the Switch. I have barely scratched any of those games. But for those who have, if you have an idea of like what could work for a challenge run in that, like I would love to see like what people come up with. To try to impose a lot of limitations, or even implement the randomizer, or implement a randomizer for Red Rescue Team that allows you to do this. Even if it required like the usage of there's an EX version ROM hack for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team, and that brings in some of the Blue Rescue Team from the DS version's exclusives, as well as allows you to control your AI partner that you're with. So it allows you to manually or automatically like control it. Like they can either behave as they do vanilla, where they act on
I'm pretty
their
sure
own
that's
accord,
actually
or
just a
you can.
function in the game that you can choose whether or not your partner functions on AI. Because I have played Blue, and I forget if it was Sky or one of the other ones, but I've played several of the Mystery Dungeon games. They're very fun.
Mhm.
One of the interesting things about it is that since so much of it is already randomized, just everything from the dungeon layout, where items are, what Pokemon you encounter, and in what order. So there's definitely the randomization that's already in the game has its restrictions, and there are definitely bounds that can be broken further to make it even more challenging. But at the same time, you would probably have to do it on different standards than you have from the normal Pokemon games, because the move sets are different, the way the moves work are different, and I feel like I can't decide it. It's been too long, so I can't remember how much like the damage calculation does. That did you play Legends Arceus?
I've played a chunk of it. Yes, I have not finished it.
From what I could tell, the damage formula in Legends Arceus was changed very significantly from what it was, or from what it is in the mainline games. That it was much easier to knock out Pokemon that were much bigger than you, and to be knocked out by Pokemon that were smaller than you. I don't recall the overall battle formula balance in the Mystery Dungeon games. I'd have to get refamiliarized, but that's an interesting concept of trying to formulate what a Nuzlocke or an Ironmon type run might look like in that system.
Yeah, like I don't think and I'm gonna post the randomizer for Sky. It's called the Sky Temple ROM Editor, and it just kind of like allows you to randomize like a bunch of different things, but most importantly, dungeon layouts, such as the weather, darkness, traps, items, Pokemon spawns, etc. And Pokemon moves, types, and abilities, and then boss fights matching the NPCs and boss fight layouts. Those are the big things that affect the gameplay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how exactly it affects Sky, because again, I haven't played through Sky, but I think it could be worth looking at and like figuring out what can be done with this, and what limitations can you impose. Like there was some talk in my chat about it yesterday, because I brought it up because I was like, I'm saying this having very little mystery dungeon knowledge, because it is part of the Pokemon series I've not actually dove into, despite my partner like really enjoying the first two games, and also like on his YouTube, one of his old projects that he used to do for music when he used to compose music and produced it, was a remaster of a lot of different Mystery Dungeon tracks as well. So he's really into Mystery Dungeon, but he doesn't really think about like challenge runs and stuff like that, that don't already exist. But yeah, like he's also on the Ironmon train with me, but I would love to see, someone take the Sky Temple randomizer and just like see what they could do with like implementing a potential sort of how do you call it, challenge variant for the Mystery Dungeon series, because I think that would be really cool for the folks who prefer Mystery Dungeon over the main series games.
Yeah. Because it's been a while since they had a Mystery Dungeon release. That they did the Switch port, obviously, so the series hasn't been totally abandoned, but it's been a while since there's been a entirely new installment in that particular side series.
Yeah, I believe Super Mystery Dungeon was the last installment. That would have been like,
for the 3DS a while back, if memory serves. Yeah,
like that is about right, honestly. Like I do know, like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other challenges I'd want to do with Pokemon, and I think other than trying to do like, I kind of want to do a Pichu run in Crystal, because my first Pokemon game was like Pokemon Yellow, and I really liked
that was
Pikachu.
My first one too. That it was for my 7th birthday that I got a Yellow Game Boy and Pokemon Yellow version. I had played bits and pieces of Blue and Red on friends' Game Boys, but that was my first actual own game. And for me, you mentioned that you had gold, which is funny because I put in probably, it would have been 220, 250 hours into my silver cartridge. Which is part of why Pokemon, unsurprisingly, is a franchise that has a lot of meaning and a lot of fondness for a lot of people. So it's something that comes up on the show not infrequently. It's very rare that I get to talk in this type of detail, and this is the first time I've ever discussed these types of challenge runs. So it's been really fun having this particular deep dive with you. But part of what actually led to me tuning in also for that Crystal randomization run is the fact that Generation 2, I've said multiple times before, is my favorite generation. I don't think that, in retrospect, looking back, I understand a lot of the complaints about it, especially when it comes to the level scaling over time. I don't think it's the best game in the series, but it's my favorite game in the series. Certainly the one that I put the most time into, despite having played since Gen 1. That, for me, just everything from the music, I thought that the plot felt more substantial in the second game, and just the fact that you could then go back to Kanto, the magic of revisiting and seeing what had changed over time, the fact that, Blue is now running the Viridian Gym, or you're no longer able to access the upper part of Lavender Tower because, there was an attack there a couple years ago and they've shut it off, and these little things, and it felt like really revisiting, because in real time between the release of Generations 1 and 2, just in the real world, it had that parallel, which we haven't really had in Pokemon since then, that we've had references to other regions, and there's been progression that there are references to events that happened in previous games, but there's never been that very distinct time progression baked into the lore of the game in any of the others, and something I really enjoyed. Plus just the going into Mount Silver and finding Red, because it was not only what you see, mostly you think of it as Ash from the anime because, Pikachu up front and everything, but in a lot of ways it felt like seeing the shadow of your past self. For someone who had played Red, Blue, or Yellow, it felt like seeing yourself. And even if you didn't have that exact party, it had something of an emotional weight, which is not common for the Pokemon series, at least not in that sense.
Yeah, like absolutely. And I think the closest we've gotten to like seeing like passage of time in the games is probably like Black 2, White 2.
Yeah, that would do it.
There's Black 2, White 2. Mind you, Gen 5 is probably one of the ones I'm fuzziest at because it's probably either 8 or 7 are my least favorite gens. I just didn't really enjoy them. I didn't even actually finish a Black 2 playthrough, so like I can't really speak for its plot. A lot of people tell me it's amazing.
I never played 2. I beat it was original Black or White. I forget which one I had. I think it was Black because we hadn't had an electric dragon before, but there had been a fire dragon before, so I wanted the electric dragon.
Yeah, you get Reshiram, which is the fire dragon, actually in Black. So White is where you get Zekrom.
I probably had White, yeah.
Yeah, I had because the thing that made me mad was that my favorite color is black, and
but in order to get the Black Legendary, you need to buy the White game.
Yeah, and I didn't want to buy the White game, so I bought Black anyways, and I was just not happy with that. I don't like Reshiram's design, personally. I like Zekrom's
the
design.
Final act of Black and White, that the concept of having for the first time, the end game was not beating the champion, that the credits roll was after plot, and I did enjoy that the cinematics, it was, on the small 3DS screen and everything, but the mansion bursting out of the ground and just having to face down Gestus and an N and everything, that I very much enjoyed that final act, but I can understand that Gen 5 lagged in some other areas, and the one that I think I have the least fondness for, and it's not to say that I dislike it, the Alola region dragged for me in a fair amount of places. That I love the designs. I thought that there was a lot of cool stuff going on. There is the common complaint that there are a couple too many cutscenes in there. And I enjoyed the novelty of the trials, but I do just kind of prefer a proper gym challenge, honestly.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people do not enjoy Sword and Shield for various reasons, whether it's, no national dex or, oh my god, graphics, stuff like that.
What Sword and Shield did that is so big is the quality of life changes. I say this as someone who works in gaming and sort of has a bit of a deeper understanding of design, and just there's so many little things that game did that pushed the series as a whole forward that I can, again, completely understand the complaints. I'm not going to call Sword and Shield a perfect game. It's not.
Oh, no.
But I think that a lot of people will look back a couple years from now and realize, oh, wait, there's a lot of mechanics and systems that were introduced in Sword and Shield that are now, I would hope, standards in the game that were, going farther back. And it's something that for people who play something like Gold, Silver, Crystal, or Red, Blue, Yellow, that you see just how far the series has come in terms of design. And I think there was a lot of not battle system things that, Gen 4 had the physical special slit, Gen 3 had abilities, but I think for Sword and Shield, it's going to be known for the UI and the quality of life systems that it introduced.
Yeah, like it honestly made... Alright, so like Gen 8, I actually love how gyms are handled in Gen 8, and I really like the sense of the world that is the Galar region. And the Galar region, like they play themselves up as like this region that is really, really into Pokemon battling, and you actually feel that energy, right? Like through the whole tournament.
I never want to go back to a gym battle, even if it's not in a stadium. I never want to go to a gym battle again that doesn't have a crowd in some capacity.
Yeah, like the crowd, like I love the gym battle theme. The gym battle theme was so good. It got me so amped every single time. Like when I first heard that, at I think Milo's gym is the first one.
Yeah.
And it just like like hearing that song ramp up, I was like, holy buckets, this is a banger. And like it just like felt really, really cool. Like even if it's not in a stadium, just having bystanders watching and cheering as part of the song was like really, really cool. I love the energy that it brought. I actually I know a lot of people find Hop super annoying, but I appreciated his development.
Yes, he had
by the time
growth.
the post game happened.
And if
Yeah,
anything,
like,
I think that he felt like he was written to be annoying at the start.
Yeah.
So you could appreciate the fact that he wasn't annoying at the end.
Yeah, and also like, you know, see that he has like, you know, he actually had insecurities and he had like, you know, some level of complexity. So like despite being super obnoxious and very annoying, I'll openly say that. He was at times insufferable, but like to see him like kind of develop and grow a bit better and like realize that, you know, oh, I don't want to, like, maybe trying to be like my big brother Leon isn't really the answer for me. Maybe I actually want to, like, be a professor's assistant to eventually become, like, a Pokemon professor. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a really big thing, and it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, of whether being compared to, you know, your older sibling or really just anyone else, that the concept of, all right, it's very clear that Hop has been under pressure, not just from himself, but there would come an understandable amount of, if not expectation, inferred, I suppose, pressure of, you know, oh, your brother's the champion. That means that you must want to follow in his footsteps, and, you know, you must be a really good trainer and everything, and that they did a great job of humanizing the characters. And I think that's something that they've gotten better at in the past several generations, that there was a lot of that in the Alola region, that
I
while
actually
there's a
liked
lot of
that a lot.
cutscenes, some of the cutscenes are just really good, others are very bland because it's sort of they decide to take a lot of their tutorials in cutscenes as opposed to a bit smoother integration of it all. But it's a lot more than what we get, goodness knows, in Gen 1 and 2. That Gen 1, there's not much, and to be fair, there wasn't much at all for, you know, deep development in non-JRPG games at that point in gaming, just across the board. We get bits and pieces of it in 2, 3, and 4, I think, where they start to introduce a bit more plot and some complexity, and you can see the steps and progression being made. But I think that there was a real turning point with Gen 5 when they had the complexity of N as a character, and that things have really gone from there, and that it's become, you know, it's still Pokemon. It's still a game for kids. So there's an understandable ceiling to how complex they're going to make their writing. But I think they've found a very nice middle point, and now it's a matter of presentation of it all.
Yeah, and I think that's going to come in due time. The other close thing that I think we got to, like, passage of time in regions is just, like, Hisui to Sinnoh. Except instead of going forwards in time, don't mind my Google, my Google Home just, like, did not like whatever the hell was happening just now. It's like something went wrong. Try again in a few seconds.
Special guest on Vtuber Talk, Google Home.
Exactly. I think my partner's just trying to go, like, you know, set an alarm and stuff, but Google's just not having it. But it's all good. But like, instead of going from, you know, like forwards in time, like we did with the 3-year gap between Kanto and Johto in Red, Blue, Yellow to Gold, Silver, Crystal, instead we're going back, like, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of years.
I think it's the first proper prequel the series has ever had, at least in terms of its games.
Yeah, and then, like, outside of mainline, there is Pokemon Coliseum to XD Gale of Darkness, where it is revisiting the same region, but it is, time has passed. There is references to the actions of the protagonist, Wes, of Coliseum, and, you know, there's like, hey, the region that used to not have any wild Pokemon because it's inhospitable is now starting to get, you know, hospitable regions where you can actually catch Pokemon. I thought that was really cool, and I forgot what the name of that region was, but I love Colosseum into XD Gale of Darkness, and XD Gale of Darkness also had a lot of quality of life that Colosseum did not. Colosseum actually, casually for me, was a very difficult game, and as a game, it's one of those games that I've actually I like so much that I did try doing following a speedrun guide for it to see hey, what is the speedrun even remotely like? And that was including I spent 6.5 hours or something following a beginner's guide with a Feraligatr route, Feraligatr and Espeon route through Colosseum, and it was a lot of fun. Is it a run I would probably go back to? Maybe if I have time to do full-time streaming as well. But speaking of what I do, my actual job right now is GDQ hotfix show running.
Yeah, we've kind of buried the lead on that, I suppose. That we've gotten really into a lot of different ones.
Yeah, we ended up talking about Sonic for a bit, then we talked really heavily about Pokemon, because that's what I'm actively doing, is Pokemon Challenge stuff. And then what I also do is GDQ hotfix show running, and what that means is that I'm a host for a syndicated speedrun show as part of their hotfix series of programming. And Games Done Quick is probably the largest speedrunning organization that does charity marathons and events, and even non-charity events, known on Twitch right now. There's other large orgs like ESA, which is European Speedrun Assembly, and a few others.
GDQ is certainly the name that I think of first when I think of speedrunning on Twitch. That they very much established themselves. So where was this connection made, that we've gotten sort of your entry into speedrunning as a whole of getting into things with Sonic Adventure 2 and then branching out farther into the community? But how do you wind up with GDQ?
Yeah, so I did say that one of my gateways into getting the speedrunning was seeing Games Done Quick. I saw Summer Games Done Quick, and I saw a very early awesome Games Done Quick. I remember seeing some of the 2011 events. I think I saw Summer Games Done Quick 2010. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was 2011 though, is when I first got exposed to GDQ, and that's also how I got into speedrunning, because they talked about speedruns live seasons. They plugged it. That's how I found it. That's how I got into it. That's how I got into Sonic Adventure 2. But to talk about how I got into GDQ is to also talk about how I got into event organizing as because that's if I could have a dream job, it would be straight up being able to turn fast-paced events into not another GDQ, but into a more known organization that follows through on the mission that it's set out on. And that's raising awareness and money for LGBTQ in gaming causes, as well as or not even in gaming, just LGBTQ plus causes, as well as mental health, especially with a focus on gaming and mental health and speedrunning, those sorts of causes. And that's my dream job. But I got into event organizing I started to learn that maybe being a grinding person, as we call it, someone who just grinds for a time on the leaderboard, was not necessarily where I belonged in speedrunning, because I was invited to do commentary by a friend of mine in the SA2 community, Sonic Adventure 2 community, who ran Dark Story, and Dark Story is actually my favorite category of Sonic Adventure 2, despite it being the one I ran less than Hero Story. I ran Hero Story for 4 or 5 years, I think, and then 1 year I ran Dark, nothing but Dark Story, and I actually really like Dark Story. And
do you think there's a reason for what makes one story or the other either more popular or more difficult? That they have obviously a lot of parallels, that in terms of the stages that you have with each character, that I think it's about 1 for 1, but those stages are still different. So I don't know, is Dark Story considered easier, harder? What are the main difference points between the two in terms of the speedrunning community?
So for the speedrunning community, the movesets are very, very similar between the characters. Of Rouge and Knuckles are the two treasure hunting characters that both glide. They have Drill Drive or Drill Claw, Spiral Up or Screw Kick. They're just named different things. They have the same movesets.
Eggman and Tails are the same. Sonic and Shadow are largely the same. That there's a couple minor, perhaps statistical differences, but by and large, you have these three overarching categories of stages, and the stages will have different layouts and whatnot. But what makes one story versus the other different, particularly for speedrunning?
Yeah, so the stage overlay or layouts are completely different from Hero to Dark, and there's also a different distribution of the gaming types. However, there's different tricks, like Sonic like for looking at speed stages specifically, like Sonic gets the bounce bracelet, which Shadow does not, and that gives us a whole slew of gravity shenanigans and like super bounce shenanigans that you can do in Hero Story that you simply can't do in Dark because Shadow doesn't get it. That alone makes Shadow kind of easier for me to speedrun because I don't have to worry about in the vanilla Dark Story run, you don't pick up Lightspeed Dash for Shadow at all. It's not necessary. You can skip it with a spin dash jump in White Jungle, and Shadow actually keeps just his base moveset through the whole run, and that doesn't make him any less complex in terms of his level like movement and everything, but it does mean that he has some tech that is very, very advanced that he doesn't actually usually use. There is a whole thing in Final Chase that, long after I'd stopped speedrunning the game as like my primary speed game, that like came out like where you basically from the start of Final Chase, you jump off the rail that you start on and you like have skewed gravity, which is a thing that also happens in Final Rush as well. And you can just fall through a bunch of what we call kill planes, which are invisible like planes in the level that will kill you if you make contact with them. And you're able to basically fall to the end of the stage and either hit the goal ring or hit a space very close to it, and you skip basically the whole stage. I don't know how to do that trick, but there's that. Just like the movement tech for the mechs are different in terms of like how you want to maneuver through the levels, even if their base movesets are the same and the tech available to them are the same, like pause hovering, which is or hover jumping as we call it in the community. There's a couple of different names for it, but basically you are getting your 2A inputs between jump and initiating your hover as Tails or Eggman as close together as you can, so you take your upward momentum of your initial jump and apply it to your hover, which allows you to gain more height than normal from a jump. Oh my god, Minus does not like when I obscure their face. Yep, there we go. Camera does not like that at all. But
yeah, that gets into I suppose some analogies for that type of move might be wave dashing in Smash Brothers, but you also see things like that in a lot of games where just the game was not designed to accept two inputs very close together, and so physics gets wonky and bleeds from one action into another. I hadn't actually considered that previous to watching your streams, and until you mentioned it just now, like the thing with the jump ring for Sonic, I had forgotten about that. So between the two, you said that the Hero Story is a bit more popular, I suppose, in terms of the number of people doing that one.
Yeah, so Hero Story is significantly more popular than Dark. At least when I picked up Dark Story, very few runners by comparison ran. A lot of people still had, but like we have several hundred runs at the time that I had switched from Hero to Dark. We had several hundred runs on the leaderboard for Hero Story, and it was a very optimized category at the time. Whereas Dark Story hadn't really had a lot of active runners. People would get the world record and stop grinding it because they found Hero Story maybe more fun because it had a lot more known skips in it, has a higher skill ceiling at the time. Whereas Dark Story was much more movement focused, and it also has the harder treasure hunting stages for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the Rouge stages, whereas I strongly prefer them over the Knuckle stages. I find the movement in Rouge's stages a lot more fluid and fun because Egg Quarters is way better than Death Chamber. Death Chamber is very, if you don't use skips or clips to get through Death Chamber, and, basically going through walls, going out of bounds, Death Chamber becomes very claustrophobic, and it's very, very difficult to get good movement in it. And, that's not to say, oh, I was bad at it, so I quit. That's not really what it was. It was just I didn't have an interest. I didn't like the stage as a kid, and I didn't like it as a speedrunner. Whereas a stage like Mad Space, which I hated as a kid, in Dark Story. Mad Space has all the different gravity planets and stuff like that, for those of you who like maybe only casually know the game. I actually found, because of how wide it is, and I really enjoyed like trying to like learning how to quickly read the first hint of every like piece backwards very, very quickly. That was how I developed that skill, which I will never be able to apply to anything else in my life. Hello, Raiders.
Morimojo, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in. This is Vtuber Talk. I'm Jay. I have Amber Cyprian with me today. They are a very talented speedrunner and Pokemon challenge runner. We were actually just talking about both their history and some of the differences in Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning, the light story versus the dark story, and this then leading into how Amber became involved with GDQ, which is Games Done Quick, a very well-renowned speedrunning event and charity organization. So welcome on in, folks.
Yeah, and so getting back to like, you know, what I like about like, or like Hero versus Dark Story was just like, Dark Story just has like certain things that are more difficult, but I feel like is a better beginning category if you were to look at baseline runs, because again, you don't have to worry about Bounce Bracelet with Shadow. If I were to recommend a category for someone to get into, like without using glitches or anything like that, I would recommend Dark Story, just because it forces you to get better at the stages that tend to be harder, and that's like harder to like, you know, get good movement in, and that's like the mech stages. You have to focus solely on your fundamentals with Shadow, and I think that Rouge stages offer better movement opportunities for the hunting characters. If you get decent at Dark Story movement, you can definitely take that into Hero Story, and if you find out you like Hero Story better, that's cool, but you built fundamentals in movement in Dark Story, and I thought that was really cool. And we were talking about how this got me into event organizing, and it was actually like a friend of mine introduced me to do commentary, or invited me to do commentary for a charity marathon. I don't remember which one, but it was a charity marathon. He was running Sonic Adventure 2 Dark Story, and he invited me because I was like one of the like only people that he knew had, you know, commentary that he liked, and it's just because I had been doing a little bit of commentary for the Dark Story tournament that was ongoing on Speed Gaming at the time. And he was like, you should do commentary, you're a good friend of mine, I think you'd do great. And I was really nervous, to the point where like I actually met Darkman and Spike Vegeta at a PAX East speedrunning panel and asked them the question and picked their brains a little bit about how to do commentary for a marathon, because I'd never done commentary for a marathon. It's handled a bit differently from a speedrunning tournament, because speedrunning tournaments, you talk about the here and now and what the two racers are doing actively, rather than taking the time to explain a run, right? And explaining a run and making it accessible and digestible to newer viewers is more of the focus of showcase commentary, which is like marathons like Games Done Quick, or Power Up with Pride, or whatever other marathons. There's so many marathons out there now. And
I suppose for folks that might not be super into the speedrunning communities, but might have at least a baseline knowledge of sports and sports commentary, that this is like comparing basketball commentary, which is going to be your speedrunning challenge, which is the here and now, because basketball is very fast-paced, and you're just doing the commentary of, all right, who has the ball, passing, what's going on. There's not a lot of time between plays or downtime that you might have the occasional timeout, but the bulk of the commentary is going to be your reactionary stuff, versus something like football commentary or golf commentary, where things are, even if not stopping constantly, that the commentary is focused on the more technical aspects, that you might go into things like statistics, or that you're going to be able to create a broader narrative in terms of your commentary, as opposed to it being, like you said, sort of the here and now.
Yeah, it's even like borderline kind of like a mix of, because you do have some reactionary commentary in there if like a really hard trick gets hit or something like that, or if something's giving the runner trouble, and you're commentating for them, or even if you're commentating your own run, you sometimes react to the here and now. It's kind of, I think baseball commentary might be a decent mix of it, because
because you have your home run moments, which are going to be those tricks that are landed, but things are then slower. That one of the things that baseball is really known for nowadays is the depth of stats and the fact that commentators are going to be able to pull up of, so-and-so got a double on their first at-bat and then a triple. They've only had 4 games this season where they've had 3 hits. Let's see if they can get a third hit with their at-bat now. And that at the same time, like you said, that you'll have those big moments of they'll stop whatever they're doing if someone hits the ball really far or if there's an error made, and that being able to react in real time and sort of shift gears as a commentator.
Yeah, like I think like baseball's probably like a good mix of like what a marathon commentary style is versus basketball, that is much more fast-paced play-by-play sort of stuff, which is what you get in speedrunning tournaments or races, and that's kind of like a huge aspect there. And then there's so like I do this commentary for this Dark Story run at this marathon, and I realized like, hey, that went pretty well after like getting advice from like Darkman, who was for a while the social media manager for Games Done Quick. He is no longer with Games Done Quick. He actually just got a different position somewhere else. I actually don't know what he's doing next, but shout outs to you, Darkman. You are a great inspiration to me, as well as Spike Vegeta, who is part of the interview team at Games Done Quick for their main events, where they interview runners and talk about, maybe how they got involved in something, or, got involved in the game that they're running, or, talk a little bit about the run, or asking questions from social media, stuff like that. But Spike has immaculate commentary as a runner, because I've seen his runs like Rayman, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Rayman, or not Origins, but Legends, stuff like that. Like, he's done incredible commentary, and he's a theater kid like me. So like I've always looked up to him, and he's a great dude. And him and Darkman both sat down with me at PAX East 2018. And like after a panel that they were a part of, and like just talked to me about like, how to get into like marathon commentary, or like, how to tackle it, and how to like I later asked them, how do you speedrun a game that has like no known resources or community, which was Sonic 3D Blast at the time for me. And they, it gave me advice on how to just approach running a game that doesn't have any resources to really learn from, and that was really helpful. But after doing that commentary for that Dark Story tournament, I realized, the Dark Story run at the marathon, I realized that I actually really liked commentary, and that's when I started to realize that like maybe like just constantly going for PBs wasn't what was making me happy in speedrunning. It was being able to explain the run to others. And so I started getting involved in like more marathon and tournament commentary for the game, and then later when I dropped Sonic Adventure 2 because it was giving me hand problems and a few other things, like a few other reasons, I felt like I had just done everything I wanted to do with it at the time. I started picking up Sonic 3D Blast, and later submitted my very own first marathon run, like in the form of Sonic 3D Blast, to a marathon called Speedathon, like multiple A's in the middle, Speedathon. And it was to raise money for travel funds for a mutual friend of mine and my partner's. At the time, I didn't know my partner yet. But the Speedathon was being hosted on TGH's channel, and our mutual friend was Revolucion, who was a Celeste and Freedom Planet speedrunner. And Freedom Planet speedrunning was something I dabbled in. For those of you who don't know what Freedom Planet is, or Celeste, they're both indie games. Freedom Planet is very much an indie game that is heavily inspired by Mega Man, Rocket Knight Adventures, and Sonic heavily. It actually started as a Sonic fan game before becoming its own IP. And I was dabbling in the Carol category, Carol being one of the characters. And that was the character that Revolucion ran, and that's how I met Revo. And he also speedrun Celeste, which is another indie game by Extremely OK Games by Maddie Thorson, and Revo had started running Celeste, which TGH was actively running at the time. So it was a mutual friend that we had no idea we were mutuals for, and I was just like, yo, I absolutely want to help Revolucion raise money to be able to travel to AGDQ, Awesome Games Done Quick, 2019, because he had gotten in for a Freedom Planet run, but he was in Argentina, and getting a visa and traveling was extremely expensive. So TGH and a few of his friends put on a marathon to raise those travel funds, and I decided, oh, I want to help out Revo. I can't think of a better reason to submit my first marathon run. So I submitted Sonic 3D Blast in the literal last minute. They were accepting submissions, by the way, because of a miscommunication. And I got accepted.
Under the wire. That's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I got accepted because Revolucion was like, I love Sonic 3D Blast. It was one of my favorite games growing up. And TGH, who was the channel host, or the channel owner, was like, yeah, I remember 3D Blast on Mega Collection. I'm totally down to accept this run. And so I did my very first run. I was extremely nervous, but I was with like two very, very close friends. I was with Sega Junkie and who I'm still friends with today, and then the only kid who sadly passed away at the end of 2021. Rest in peace, kid. But they were both there to be my commentators, and my run came right after one of TGH's Link to the Past runs. It was a race against a friend of his, Ben Teasy, and TGH stuck around to watch my run because he remembered the game from his childhood. He's like, I want to see what the speed run looks like. And he really enjoyed the chemistry that I had with my commentators because they were two close friends, and he liked the vibes that I gave off. And I had followed him on Twitter as I punched my microphone again. I followed him on Twitter because he was the channel owner in case I needed to contact him for an emergency or anything like that relating to the marathon. And he does what I always do and, checks the profile of someone who follows him to make sure they're not a bot, or see, what they're all about, or see what kind of speedrunner they are, stuff like that. And he noticed that we were kind of local. I was living in Boston at the time in Massachusetts, and he lived like literally an hour away by drive in another state. And that's where I currently live now because we moved in together, spoilers. But he messaged me on Twitter. It was super adorable, very dorky, but very, very kind. It was like, hey, you don't have to say yes to this, but like, and I hope this doesn't come off as creepy, but I was looking at your Twitter profile because I check everyone who follows me, and I noticed that you're in Boston. I'm not far from there. I like meeting other speedrunners. Do you want to hang out sometime? That was like what it is. Like, you don't have to respond. You don't have to say yes. Absolutely no pressure. I understand if this feels creepy. And it's like, I saw your run during Speedathon, really liked your vibes, and like thought you'd be cool, like, to meet and hang out with. And I was like, normally I'd be very weirded out by something like this. And then like me in the midst of like a 10-day stretch of overnights at work. I used to work in hotels before I started getting into event organizing. My dumb ass just goes like, yo, that sounds awesome. Like, do you like arcades? So we went to an arcade, like after I was done with my 10-day stretch, at work. We set up a day to go to an arcade. We went to a Round 1 arcade in Massachusetts, hung out, swap stories about how we got into speedrunning, what games we came from, stuff like that, and just kind of hit it off. And like we were friends for like until like January, mid-January or so, and then like we actually decided like, hey, let's like we have feelings for each other, let's like give this a shot. And 3.5 years now later, we're living together, we're both doing speedrunning stuff, we both do event organizing stuff, but like me getting into marathons and like also having him and my other close friends to back me up on like chasing, getting involved in events, like has helped me like feel more confident, and like has actually given me like a new perspective on my skill set. And I want to say in 2019 I actually organized my first event because like another friend of ours who was also in South America, his name is Fladerby, he's a Celeste, or was a Celeste speedrunner, I think he does Celeste still, but he's in Brazil, and he qualified for another big tournament called PACE 2019, and he qualified for the finals alongside TGH because they were top runners of the game. And there were the top 4, I think, for Celeste were like M Sushi, Chai Kitty, TGH, and Fladerby, and they were all qualified to go to the on-site location in Maryland. But Fladerby, being from Brazil, didn't really have the funds necessary to travel, so I had like a friend of mine who also organized Speedathon was like, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, Lori, I really want to help Flad make it to PACE. And you've had experience putting together a fundraiser to help Revo. what do you like? I've gotten TGH's permission to use his channel because he had the bigger following. He's a Twitch partner. To create a fundraiser for Flad, and Lori was all for it. Lori was like, hell yeah, let's do this. So me, Lori, TGH, and a few other people put together in 3 days time. We had 3 days to plan this. We put together what we called Flad Fest, or Fladerby Festival. And it was
I mean, this name writes itself.
Yeah, and the name writes itself, basically. And it was I was like, let's make it a festival, because we're not going to do 24/7 style format. That is very unhealthy, and we didn't have the staff or the time to do that. I was like, let's do 3 12-hour days of planned speedrunning stuff. The first day was me and TGH, doing a showcase of runs that we've learned up to that point, just revisiting stuff that he hasn't run in years, or stuff I hadn't run in a long time. And just the goal was to raise $1,500. We raised $3,000 across that weekend, but we hit $2,000 or something in the first day, which was just me and TGH doing various speed runs and stuff. And then day 2 was actually a proper 12-hour marathon that we took submissions for, and just put them in. We didn't have any time for a proper process, for a games committee or anything. It's just hey,
yeah, when you're throwing things together last minute, you go with what is safe, you go with what you know, because you want to make sure, all right, if we're doing this, and especially if it's for a cause, you want to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible, and you just accept, okay, we're not going to be able to go through the normal, like you said, committee process and open things up. And while that's the hope and goal that you would have for a event that has a longer lead time and everything like that, that the ability to pick and put together a good event in a short turnaround time is a very big challenge. And you cut the corners that you have to, and you accept certain things of just, all right, would we like to open this up to a lot of people? Of course we would, but we need to make sure this goes off without a hitch, and we don't have time to vet people, so we're gonna go with the safe bets.
Yeah, so we actually reached out to our communities, which were people that we knew, and been like, hey, what runs can you offer? If you want to offer a run, let us know what your estimate is, and we'll take you, stuff like that. And we did that 12-hour marathon, and we had some friends restream it for us, handle the restreaming and, changing shifts and everything. And that was really cool. A lot of good close friends stepped up to make that happen. And then day 3 was TGH and Flad doing a dumb challenge in Celeste. I forgot what it was, but it was some really stupid idea. Which bad ideas is kind of a thing I endorse
stupid
openly.
Ideas make for good content.
Exactly. And, it was a success. It was actually a success. The excess funds went to funding Chai Kitty's flight out to Pace, because he was also trying to get the funds necessary despite being also in the United States. And that was
in
really,
Maryland,
really cool.
in California, Maryland.
Yeah.
It's something that has actually come up on the show, that I am pretty open about my broad geographic situation, that I am in the greater Dallas area currently, but I grew up in Maryland.
Yeah, so that's over here on the East Coast. I almost said West Coast. Oh my god.
No, Patrick, that's West.
That's I don't know why I will always want to say West. I always think about Patrick, and it's no, that's not how you say it. That's not how you say East Coast. But yeah, going from Brazil, or I actually don't know where Chai Kitty comes from. I think Chai Kitty's on the West Coast though. Or maybe the Midwest or something. But we managed to fund, 2 people who couldn't make it otherwise. And that was really, really cool. And that's when I realized, hey, we threw this together in 3 days. And it
Imagine
sure.
If we actually planned.
Yeah, what would happen if I could actually sit down and plan? And time passed, and I didn't really organize anything for a little bit. And I came up with this idea of hey, I want to do an event for the Sonic community. I want there to be a focus on the Emerald collection, the Chaos Emerald or Soul Emerald or Time Stone, the shiny MacGuffin categories, basically. What's it called? and thank you for following, by the way, F2BR. So I wrote up this whole proposal for Sonic and what became Sonic and the Shiny Things. And I posted it on Twitter to try to get feelers to see if people would watch it, if people would want to submit to it, because I had a large Sonic following at that point. And a lot of people were for it, and the hotfix manager at the time, Omnom Muffins, she reached out to me and was like, hey, this is when hotfix was still pretty new, and like hotfix is Games Done Quick's off-season content basically, and it's a bunch of shows, and they want to use their platform to platform communities and games that like to remind people that speedrunning is not just twice a year. It is not just only when Awesome Games Done Quick and Summer Games Done Quick happens. It happens throughout the year, and like there are communities working year-round on their games, on, you know, leaderboards and like routing or tasking and stuff like that. And they wanted to show that, give that platform to like the community at large via their shows, and I thought that was really cool. And that includes one-off special events around the community that otherwise don't have a channel to be on. So Muffins reaches out to me and says, hey, talk to me on Discord, because if you're interested in using GDQ's channel, we'd be welcome to we'd like to welcome you for that. So I reached out to Muffins and we talked, and she was like, yeah, I'm serious in my offer, because let me give you a list of weekends you can choose from. If you do all of the legwork on organizing, which is, they have to be community organized events. Like GDQ is not going to be the ones like handling the selecting runners and stuff like that. What GDQ will handle is like running the production, running the restreaming, running the tech checks, running the vetting, all that stuff is not on my shoulders, it is on their shoulders, but all of the runner and talent sourcing is my job, right?
Yeah,
and,
but that's still a very fair split, and it makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. And like, it was just really cool. So like Sonic and the Shiny Things was like a big event. It was a 2-day, like 24-hour total, 12 days each, 12 days each, wow, 12 hours each, event that was honestly really successful. It actually is something that Argic attributes to why he managed to get Twitch partner, because he was present through a lot of day one, because everyone asked him to do commentary. If you don't know who Argic is, it's the guy in the Sonic suit above my fireplace, and he does this. He has a Scottish accent. He's from Scotland. He does this really rapid fire, like play-by-play commentary. It's absurd. And a lot of people really enjoyed it. People followed him, people like noticed him, and I thought that was really awesome. And he like appreciated the opportunity that me putting him on Games Done Quick like gave him. And like a lot of other people, I do like the Sonic events. That became a yearly thing, mind you. I do the Sonic events yearly on GDQ because I want people to recognize that there are more than just the typical any % categories. This past year we did glitchless categories. That was Sonic and the Glitchless Gauntlet. And then the year before that, so 2021, was Sonic and the side quests, where it was not side game content, but it was like side quest content that opened it up to not just Emerald Collection categories, but like emblems in Sonic Adventure or gold medals in Sonic 06, stuff like that. So like completionist style categories, and I thought that was really cool. A lot of people really like these events every year, but doing Sonic and the Shiny Things allowed me to like start building a rapport with GDQ, because I was then at one point invited to be part of their Frame Fatale series. This is before I was like fully out as non-binary and not at all like femme presenting. So like I used to do that, and then like come like November of 2020. So like I had, at this point, I had quit doing hotel work. My partner's family invited me to move in with them because of COVID-19. I'm immunocompromised, and I worked in a hotel doing overnights directly across from a hospital, a major hospital in Boston.
Yeah,
so not
you're
very
gonna have
safe
a bad
environment.
time.
Yeah, not a very safe environment for me. So I moved to another state with my partner and his family, where like we were all like either people who worked from home or also people who were immunocompromised, so that they like, they actually took a lot of precautions to protect ourselves and each other. And it to this day, I still haven't contracted COVID-19, so I have that situation to thank for that. But I had been unemployed from like February of 2020 where I quit hotels, to November of 2020. So, and like someone who has worked since they were 16, I've worked basically full-time hours since I was 16, and kind of making it on my own since then. Like, it was very, very foreign to be kind of relying on my partner for financial income, right? And it feels really weird and really icky to me. And then Games Done Quick posted on their Twitter, like, hey, we have a couple of, we're looking for a speedrun showrunner, a speedrun show organizer to submit a show idea for GDQ Hotfix. This would be a bi-weekly, every other week on this day, at this time, you know, gig. It would be paid. You need to be able to legally work in the US to apply, yada yada yada. Send us a showrun idea and a couple of examples of, like, you know, episodes that you would compose, right? Or like design or plan. So at the time, I had just recently wrapped up another marathon for a esports organization called Rogue. They're typically an not Overwatch. They usually do Rocket League, and I think they do some League of Legends and Overwatch, but their main focus is Rocket League. And my partner at the time, TGH, was with them. He's no longer with them, but like, we organized a speedrun charity event for able gamers called Rogue Rush that was in 2020, and that raised like $2,500, I think, or something like that. It raised some amount of money for Able Gamers, which is a charity focused on like trying to have solutions for disabled gamers to be able to play games, and that's including like adaptive controllers. They worked with Microsoft on the adaptive controller, or other devices that allow like people who can't use their hands very well or at all to play games and enjoy them much the same way that, you know, someone like me who has full access to their hands, even with, you know, hand and wrist pain, like, I still have full use of my hands otherwise, like, allows me to, you know, people don't have that to enjoy games too, and that was very important. Accessibility is very important to me, because there will be a point where I can't use my hands as well anymore, and like, that has been setting in since I became a speedrunner, and even beforehand. But like, I did that, I had organized Rogue Rush, and then the GDQ opportunity opens, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna submit to this. What the hell do I submit? And I had this marathon idea, like, between Fladfest and Rogue Rush and Sonic and the Shiny Things. I'd come up with this idea that I hadn't actually put to use, and it was to make a marathon that was based around accepting games that had never been on the main stages of GDQ or ESA, right? And those are the two really big speedrun marathons.
Yeah, going for just anything that is off-brand.
Yeah, anything that has not had that opportunity yet, or in some cases won't get that opportunity for whatever reason. Maybe it's a run that takes way too long, or it's just not safe for the charities involved. Like, you know, the charities have to like also be like, hey, we're okay with this. So like, for example, like, I can't imagine a medical charity would be really into having like a game like, let's say, Plague Inc. or Resident Evil series or Trauma Center, stuff like that. You won't really want to see that, you know, for a medical-based charity, right? Or like, you don't want to see, like, for a mental health-based charity, you wouldn't want to see a negative depiction of really heavy topics. I'm not going to name any of them in case of, like, you know, trigger warnings or anything like that. But like, you know, depression.
There's a lot of games that are very legitimate and interesting in their storytelling, that they aren't. It's not, you wouldn't want them because they are offensive or anything, but it is something that, due to the overlap with the organization, would just be in poor taste, that you're not going to do that, and that this opens it up to that. Or also, if it's just a niche game, if it's something that has you know, a cult following, and it's a small passionate community, not nearly enough to get to the main stage in terms of people who would have that interest, but that it still has people who are very talented at the given game, that this offers that secondary stage to them.
Yeah, because we don't have to worry about a charity platform with Hotfix. We don't do charity for Hotfix unless it's like the Frame Fatale series of events where they do Malala Fund, or like other specific, you know, special events that they have to do a lot of clearance in advance for. Because there's a whole lot of red tape around that, but that I don't actually, you know, have access to or am privy to. But like, I've just been told, like, hey, generally we don't do hotfix for charity unless there's a lot of time in advance to plan it, yada yada yada. But so I was like, okay, what if I took this marathon idea and like I drop ESA because it doesn't make any sense to exclude games that have been on ESA like for GDQ, and let's just turn that into a show that I could do bi-weekly. And like, because there's a bunch of games and a bunch of runs and a bunch of categories even of games, maybe games that have been on the main stage but a category that hasn't. And I turned that into a show that I still hate the name of, and I have not been able to come up with a better name for it, but like Never Before Seen is my show, right? And it is focused on those games and the categories of things that have not been on the main stage of GDQ. So that's AGDQ, GDQ, or SGDQ, or GDQ Express, which only had 2 events anyways at like TwitchCon. But I submitted that, and I got reached out to like a month later or something, by the hotfix manager Muffins, who had worked with me for Sonic and the Shiny things prior, and also had invited me prior to Frame Fatale series events before I was out as non-binary. And like, she was like, hey, we really like this idea. And they actually accepted 6 other shows like alongside mine, or maybe 6 total shows including mine. But they accepted way more shows than they expected to, and started doing like this 2 episode a day format where, you know, you have 2 shows double up. One starts at 7, ends around 10. The other one starts at 10 p.m. And goes on until like 1 or so, stuff like that. And that's all Eastern time, mind you. I'm from the East Coast, and GDQ is also stationed in the East Coast. But they were like, hey, let's pair you up with a show on Wednesday nights hosted by Skybills called Mercy Kill, where it's, you know, speedrunners showing their rustiest runs. And like they're not allowed to practice prior, but when they agree to be on the show, and it's just like, you know, showcasing what happens when you let a speed game go for a while and you don't touch it. And it's like, it's accepting that this is like an okay thing, because it is. You're gonna come back to a game maybe and like be extremely rusty at it, and that's okay. And you know, you race against, you know, a timer that you feel comfortable trying to complete the run in your current state, and yada yada yada. And Muffins was like, let's pair you up with that, because I really like your idea. But because it's gonna have some niche games, I think it does well paired up with a show that doesn't restrict itself like that, right?
Yeah, that you want to have cool. A good complement to it, so something that you know, either has the more recognizable things that it's a very common tactic for programming as a whole, whether it be, you know, television programming back in the day, that you'll want to put a show that you want to build up on your platform right after the biggest show on your platform, because you're hoping that, you know, I'm just gonna pull something random, NCIS or whatever, you know, a mainstay show, that whenever there's going to be a premiere of something, that they usually put it after something like NCIS, where it's something that you know is going to have a very regular and high viewership for your channel or your platform, because then you're hoping that some percentage of people will stay tuned in from that one into this new one. Then obviously you hope that the other one builds up to have a big following of its own, but you're doing your best to stack the deck in your favor. So that type of programming decision makes a lot of sense to me.
And so like they get me slotted, they get me like, you know, set up and everything, and like I've been running that show since December. My first episode was in December, and I am on episode, oh god, 30 something. Notepad. I have my show intro, and I always talk about what episode I'm on.
Definitely couldn't be me with Notepad opened at this moment, which I read my intro from and everything. No, absolutely not.
Yep. We're actually going to be doing episode 31 this Wednesday, which is going to be focus on Mega Man, because it's Mega May. Mega Man Star Force 2, any percent no cards. That's going to be a really fun show. But we're on episode 31 because I did have to take a break in January and February. I had to take those 2 months off to organize my most recent marathon, the only marathon, or actually, it's not my most recent marathon. It's my most recent non-GDQ based one. And that was actually when I founded, January is when I founded my own speedrun organization, Fast Paced Events, which I've mentioned a couple of times. And that came about when My friend, the only kid I've mentioned, passed away at the end of 2021, and I found out shortly after AGDQ 2022 had started. And they were someone who had worked with me on a number of events through the Sonic Speedrun community, because I was also part of that events team while it was active for about a year, doing tournaments and one marathon. And they worked with me on one of my first solo marathons in a while, and that was Fast Paced for Headspace back in November of 2021, and that raised money
really
for
good at
Take
naming
This.
your events, Amber.
Well, I'm not actually. Sonic and the Shiny Things, Fast Paced for Headspace, those were both named by Kid, actually.
Well, Kid is really good at naming events, and all these events have been just like, I went to school for marketing, but that's one of my backgrounds there. And every time you say these event names, I'm like, that's really good. That it either has the alliteration or it has a double meaning that makes a lot of intuitive sense for gaming, and just that they're very well done. I appreciate them.
Yeah, and like when we lost Kid, it was we didn't talk about this till after the event was done, but we lost Kid to suicide. They'd been struggling with their mental health and eventually lost that fight. And it was a very deep and personal loss for the folks that I now call like my colleagues and my staff at Fast Paced Events. And it actually is what spurned the founding of Fast Paced Events, which, as I later went through history with like my Discord history with Kid after their passing, I found out was actually a name they had suggested, and I completely forgot, and I fell on that name when we were like, you know what, I think it's time we finally like formally form a team and actually commit to this. And we wanted to raise money for the Trevor Project in their honor, because it was a charity that they held close to their hearts, and we felt it was, the proper thing to do in memory of them, because they were like well known for commentary in the Sonic community, and they, were really positive and had a lot of great energy. And we wanted to do something, and one thing that the way I cope with stuff like heavy things like loss and whatnot is to start working. And maybe that's not always the healthiest coping mechanism, but like it allows me to process things in the time that I need, and it allows me to have that distraction, but like allows me to also think actively about what's going on at the same time. And we were like, okay, for this to remain relevant to what's happened, we need to have this running by February. And it was like the first full week of January where we found this out. So it was the fastest we had ever planned an event together. Like, the staff for Fast Paced Events worked with me previously on Fast Paced for Headspace in November, and that event was announced in July and didn't go live till November, because I wanted to make sure we had the staff, the volunteers, and the runners necessary to put on that event and make it happen. And that event did a 12-hour format for 3 days, and that was hosted on my partner TGH's channel. And then the only marathon, we didn't have time to really build a following for our own brand yet, but we were like, okay, we're gonna create our own brand, have a logo and like everything, a Twitter account and YouTube account and Twitch account ready to at least announce the brand. And also, with the brand announcement, we're going to announce the event that we called The Only Marathon, in honor of the only kid. And that name took us a while to land on as well. And that in the span of like a week, we had that announcement ready, complete with like logo for the event and logo for Fast Paced Events and everything like that. You have never seen me work faster on graphics than you have ever seen me during the month of January, let me tell you. But we were like, okay, so we're going from basically what was 6 months of planning to a month of planning. And if I can do Fladfest in 3 days, we can do this in a month. We are never doing an event in a month's time ever again, by the way. But we made it happen.
That achievement unlocked.
Yeah, and like, so we put out the announcement. We had an overwhelming reception to it. Like, I'm saying, like, we had 70 volunteer applications, which is unprecedented. Like, Fast Paced for Headspace had like 25. So we had 70 volunteer applications. We took 40 of them. We went from what was going to be a potentially like 12-day, 12-hour per day sort of 3-day format over a weekend, went to 24/7 format for 3 days because we had the staff to do it. We had like 250 plus either hours or raw submissions sent to the marathon, which was like a fair chunk more than Fast Pace for Headspace, and Fast Pace for Headspace still had like over 150 hours or something submitted to it, and that like was a lot to cut down to just 36 hours for FPFH. But for the only marathon, we had like just under 72 hours that we could fill, and still had like 250 hours to go through. It was absurd, but it was hosted on Argic's channel because he was the largest out of the staff. And the staff is composed of myself as head organizer, Final Flame, who is the head of scheduling and games committee, and also manages my workload because I take on too much too often.
You do have the word workaholic in your about section on your channel.
Yes, I do. I work a lot more than I probably should, and it is a thing I'm actually actively working on. I'm trying to work, like have my fingers less in everything and just be more of a sanity checker of things. My head of hosting is Argic. I have 2 wonderful heads of tech. I have Mendez or Mendezi on Twitch. And HUD601. They are my heads of tech and restreaming. They're delightful people. And then I have my head of vetting, which is Railcoon, who also is one of the producers over at GDQ Hotfix. And then I have our YouTube manager, Richard or Augendrocker. He's another production person at GDQ Hotfix and GDQ, and he's actually my producer for Never Before Seen, so he is my restreamer. And they're all, and TGH is our head of chat moderation and like enforcement, and like they are all wonderful people that I work with. And, am delighted to, have brought this vision to life. And it was like, we did the only marathon. It was a wild success on Argic's channel, and it raised about $14,000 for the Trevor project, which was an unprecedented amount of support. I think I genuinely think the cause and like the reason why the event came about kind of like did a lot of the outreach there. A lot of people felt for us. A lot of people understood the pain of losing a close friend.
Certainly resonates,
Yeah, and like the Trevor Project alone, like also is a cause that resonates with a lot of people. For those of you who don't know, the Trevor Project is a charity that focuses on suicide prevention and support in the LGBTQ community for LGBTQ plus youth. And that is, what that cause was for, and why they were also, why it was paramount that we raised money for that foundation in that project in light of losing Kid. And because Kid was a non-binary, a person who had come out as non-binary fairly recently, and like, was definitely like struggling with mental health a lot, and, lost that fight. And it was important. It's important to us that we do the outreach as fast-paced events, as we are, like, about mental health and everything, to folks who are struggling, and create a community that supports the folks who are struggling, especially within the speedrunning and gaming communities, which is why our flagship event, which is Fast-Paced for Headspace, which we have moved to December of every year now in honor of it being the last event that Kid worked on with us, prior to us actually creating a brand, because they passed away at the end of December, and we want to honor them by raising money for Take This, which is a charity that focuses on mental health in gaming. They create a lot of safe spaces or quiet spaces in conventions like PAX.
Yeah, that's where I know Take This from mostly.
Yeah, and like Take This is very personal for me because I have gone through many mental health struggles as well, both in the gaming community and out of the gaming community, and have like, struggled with that fight with my mental health. And a close friend of mine one Christmas, who, like, after they had moved out of state and they were no longer really local to me, they sent me a wooden shield emblem from Take This with a really heartfelt letter, reminding me that I'm not alone, and like, that Take This wooden shield and sword emblem was, there to symbolize our friendship and everything, and remind me that I'm not alone, and that, they're with me in spirit and stuff like that. So like that, small gestures like that got me through some of my darkest times. And speedrunning events in the community also helped me find a community and find friends that like I hope to know for many years to come, and a community that I am proud to work with. And we're like, in the talks of like potentially having a summer event, late summer event, but a summer event nonetheless. It's just like we've all been doing our own things, and like, we want to do, our goal eventually is to have two events, one in the summer, one in the winter, and one that focuses on an LGBTQ cause and one that focuses on a mental health cause. And take this as gonna be our flagship event charity, and then we're still trying to figure out what exactly our next step, because we don't want to do the Trevor Project, not because it's a bad charity by any means. It is a wonderful charity, but it is a large charity that gets support already, and I want to try to find other charities that may not be as well known, or might just be more in line with mental health, or like also in line with mental health in the LGBTQ plus community, but not necessarily hyper focused on suicide prevention or whatever, because the Trevor Project is also has money raised for it by Power Up with Pride, which is a Pride Month speedrunning event that raises money for them every year, and I think that is fantastic. And if they accept submissions from runners that are either allies, cis allies, or folks like me who are non-binary, or our sexuality, we're not straight, stuff like that. Like, they accept runners of all walks to raise money for that cause, and I think that is wonderful. And I want fast-paced events to not necessarily double up with them, in the sense of like being redundant. I want fast-paced events to stand on its own and like stand for many of the same things that other organizations already do, but like create that space. And I think we're accomplishing that, because I've already seen people say, FPE, our Discord server and everything like that is like, even though we're like, it's fairly quiet when we're not doing events, it is still one of the, nicer communities, or the staff are very, very welcoming and, understanding and stuff like that. Cause like, in addition to our focus on, LGBTQ issues and mental health, we also like, try to practice this as well. We try not to run our staff or our volunteers into the ground. Mental health doesn't stop with raising money. Mental health stops with, continues on with our core and our operations. So like, I've definitely told my staff like a number of times, like, hey, if you ever feel like you are overwhelmed, or you feel like there is too much work on you, or anything like that, please do not hesitate to speak up. The reason I exist, and I'm a like kind of jack of all trades despite being master of none, jack of all trades that isn't necessarily delegating and managing. My mastery is managing at this point. And but like for tech and stuff like that, I am a jack of all trades. It's like I exist as a Swiss Army knife to support the rest of the department heads. And that's what I'm there for. If I can't do something, I will find someone who can, right?
You and I actually have a lot in common in terms of our skill sets, and our paths in events are not very similar, but that I see as a broader thing of, I don't think there are many people who do events who have similar paths, because it's such an unorthodox field that there is no conventional teaching for event production or organization in schools. There aren't really, trade schools for it, because event management is going to vary by industry. That if you're doing a trade show versus a convention versus a marathon versus an in-person marathon, online marathon, so many different ways, so many different things. And that a couple of the things that you mentioned, one, the background in theater, that theater kids I have definitely seen are the folks that are a bit more inclined for events, because, well, theater is an event in and of itself. So whether you were backstage with tech crew, or even on stage, or doing stage management or anything like that, that's one thing. But then also working in hotels. I'm not sure if necessarily you wound up in hotels because you had a knack for event management, or if it fed the other, or if it's a combination of both. But even if you're just working, even the front desk at a hotel, that there's a lot of event management skills that are developed and used there in terms of just the coordination, the communication, because communication is one of the key pillars of event organization. Just being able to reach out to people, talk to people, coordinate things. And a lot of hotel jobs, whether it be front desk or event managing, in their ballrooms for, weddings or conventions, conferences, what have you. There's a lot of event work that is done in hotels. I'm not sure exactly what your specific roles were, but like I said, even front desk sees a lot of that stuff. And for me, my background, it was the type of thing that I didn't even realize I was into event management until I was waist deep in it. The best I can figure is it probably started pretty early with me just being the one that would organize get-togethers with friends when I was a kid, of being the one to say, hey, let's all go out and do this thing at this time, and working with people for scheduling with that. In school, when it came to clubs and whatnot, that I would be the one helping to organize things there. A lot of my more formalized quote-unquote experience came from me having a internship with a anime company, and it wasn't supposed to be part of my internship, but I wound up working a convention with them, and I had a blast. So I started off working, frontline booth person at a convention. Then I started doing a bit more, not necessarily the logistics, but helping coordinate a little bit behind the scenes, whether it be coordinate for other staff or just talking with the management. That I've never actually been employed full-time by any of these companies I've done event work for, but I've done a lot of contract work for on-site primarily, but that still involves some planning ahead of time. Like I said, different groups, I've just done things in the community or with my own friends. Vtuber Talk came about because in 2020, when live events weren't happening, I wanted to do something, and that I thought I'd be able to do this with a basic level of competency, because one thing I'm good at, or like to think I'm good at, is communication and coordination. Just, I'm comfortable reaching out to people I've never spoken with before. That when I first reach out to you, that I have this very nice sort of business-like letter that I send people when I do that initial outreach, and that it's not just me, sliding someone's DMs and saying, hey, that, I like to think I have the professional knack and approach and sense of how to do that initial outreach, but then work with people from there, coordinate, make sure that the show is done in a way that is professional and comfortable for people involved. And that stems over to all sorts of other events, whether it be something like a concert or a convention. And you said jack of all trades, master of none. I'm very much in that boat, that I have a rudimentary working knowledge of like how to work a soundboard. I don't know much at all. Lights, even less. I'm very good with software. I'm garbage with hardware. I can plug things in, and if you tell me cord goes in there, I can do that just fine, and not much else. But I'm pretty good at communicating, and like you said, saying, all right, if I don't know how to do something, I know how to find someone who does. And that goes a long way. Just being able to work with others, communicate, and it's some combination of fake it till you make it, but also it's not quite faking it till you make it. It's just the wherewithal to keep a level head, plan in advance, and know how to work with people in a professional setting.
Yeah, like, for me, a lot of it is just knowing how to Google stuff. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. Like, when I was designing my overlays, oh god, hello. When I was designing my overlays, let's go to a different scene that is not, like, my main desktop. Or maybe let's just deactivate that. There we go. When I was designing, like, all my different game scenes, we have my 16:9 scene. If I deactivate, like all this stuff, I learned how to use the Stream Deck and learned how to, like, do various things I wanted to do in OBS and Photoshop. literally by Googling a lot.
Mhm.
Most of my Photoshop stuff is self-taught, and I do all of the oops, I want to deactivate all sources. Nope, there it is. All right, so like this is like what I start with, and then I like this is what my screen looks like when I first start my stream, right? Learning how to do like animations and learning how to do like this in After Effects and Premiere, a lot of that stuff was just like a lot of learning and a lot of Googling and a lot of, you know, figuring my life out and asking for help from my friends like Mendez and Huds, who are my tech folks.
You mentioned going out of your way and asking to talk to people when you were at PAX East, even when it came to just doing commentary or doing some of your first speedruns, and that's a big thing. Asking for help or asking experts and figuring out, all right, I don't know how to do these things. If I can find out from Google, I'll do that. But if it's something a bit more nebulous, ask an expert if you can get in touch with one.
Yeah, exactly. And like then I also have like just basically all these transitions and whatnot, like all this stuff was me just like learning things from scratch, or like maybe brushing up on things I didn't know how to do, or did know how to do but had forgotten because I only did it once for like a specific layout. I made all of these overlays, like all of these overlays and things I made myself, and I'm also the overlay artist for fast-paced events in addition to being the head organizer. It's just like a lot of it, you said fake it till you make it, and yes, to some degree that's true. Like for me, I think the biggest fake it till I make it thing is really just like I don't like doing outreach. Despite the fact that I can come off as outgoing, I'm actually heavily introverted and have a lot of social anxiety. But because I did like 8 years of theater in school and everything, like I'm very used to having to step out of that comfort zone and do that professional outreach and everything. And when I worked hotels, I was night audit and I was the night manager, and so front desk and management and like understanding how other departments worked at night, stuff like that, or understanding how events worked, so I could, you know, I was the only person who could explain these things to like guests who had questions late at night, or emailing accounting or anything like that. Like I did mostly night audit and then did in management, and then did like a year of account, not even a year, like 6 months of accounting, and called that quits because like that accounting department was not great. But that's, you know, then I went back to night audit after like 8 months of not doing hotels, and I was just kind of like figuring my life out and whatnot. That was the only other stretch of unemployment I've ever had, but I had a lot saved up to allow me to figure out what I wanted to do next, if I wanted to get out of hospitality or not, stuff like that. But
there's that very significant overlap of skill set, and I think that's
Oh,
part
yeah.
of I think part of why you probably enjoyed that for the time that you were there, and why you were good, and why you then had those strong skills coming into this for streaming and speedrunning event organizing, was that overlap. And like I said, it's a not necessarily intuitive flow, but there's so few quote-unquote conventional flows for people getting event experience. It's just a combination of happenstance, accident, volunteering at the right place at the right time, and then just keeping at it.
Yeah. Like I actually I went from 6 years of customer service work in a grocery store where I mostly worked at the service desk because I have sciatica, and I developed that at like 17, which was really bad. But it meant that I had to be at the desk rather than like actively cashiering and bagging. I cashiered and bagged for like a year, and then like sciatica set in, and then I was just like, hey, I can't do this anymore. Can I try to work the service desk? So they got me trained for that, and that's where I stayed for the remainder of my 6 years there. I was there for so I was doing service desk work for 5 years, cashier and bagging for a year or whatever, and then so very heavy customer service. I had the power to make a lot of executive calls without necessarily always needing a manager, especially the longer I was there. They trusted my judgment more and more. And just like sometimes I would also help manage the customer service department, so like all the front end stuff. So that was like cashiers, bagging, who was on shift, stuff like that. I did help out a little bit with that, despite it not being my main job. And then I was able to transfer that skill set into doing hotel night audit, and it helped that I was a night owl because they needed a overnight person. And I worked with a hotel company for about 4 years, and then for like 3 years. Then like I transferred from night audit to accounting for like 6 months, then left the company. And then wound up picked up by another hotel company when I was just like, yeah, I still don't have a real direction on what I'm doing with myself. I did a little bit of local events with like trading card games. I was the tournament organizer for Yu-Gi-Oh for my area in Boston, and then also did some Pokemon and some Resident Evil deck building game and stuff like that. So I was a TO for a little bit, but that doesn't actually pay the bills. And then like I was like, okay, I actually need to go back to hospitality because it paid the bills. To be fair, like I was fine with the paper. I liked the paperwork I did as a night auditor, right? I liked all the problem solving and stuff, which is a thing I'm also good at. And like I liked the just kind of flow of the overnight. What I didn't always appreciate was the corporate abuse. Like hospitality is not a environment I recommend unless you like working in corporate jobs. If you like working in corporate jobs, or if you happen to find a property that like treats you really well and treats you with respect, by all means, like I think hospitality can be very rewarding work. But it is also one of the most abusive industries I've ever been in. And I never want to go back. Like full stop. It gave me a lot of skills. It gave me a lot of patience. It gave me a lot of tolerance. That's the thing that I need when working with events. Yeah. So it gave me a lot of skills that I was able to take into event organizing, mostly working with people and with runners. I work a lot better with runners once I actually have them in the Discord. But like hospitality is an industry I never want to go back to if I can avoid it, even if I am really good at it.
Understandable, for sure.
But like when it comes to like doing outreach, like I have to do outreach like every week for runners for Never Before Seen, and like that drains me because I'm just like I type how I talk. So the way I talk is very similar to how I type, except with additional LMAOs and LOLs and like smiley faces and stuff. So I can type formally, but I still also am very much informal even in my formal typing. And I often with like FPE stuff, I have to have like Mendez, I have to have her, or HUDs, or even Final Flame. I have to have basically the whole staff proofread my stuff because I'm either prone to typos or I type things in the way that I speak, which often leads to like fragmented sentences or thought structures or anything like that. So like most of the things that go out on the Twitter or go out like in announcements have been proofread at least 3 times by other people, even if I was the main person who typed it.
Well, that's good. That having a formal announcement from any organization, it should be proofread by at least one other person. So,
oh yeah,
like even if you're really good at that intuitively, that just knowing to have it proofread is already very good. Frankly, I know several organizations that would benefit from having that oversight that you already have in place there.
Oh yeah, like I think people feel comfortable working around me because of the fact that I type like I speak. But that's once the relationship has been established. It's more of the outreach that's just like, hey, people either recognize that I'm not BSing them or like are just like, where did this person learn how to do outreach? Like, what the hell? Most people just feel more comfortable, I think, and I think that plays to my advantage, but also just like, it doesn't make me any less nervous.
That's very fair. That
oh yeah,
even I think an amount of nervousness is healthy for event running and for show running. Of just it keeps you on your toes. You're always thinking, all right, what can go wrong, and planning for those things, and it keeps you prepared to react if and when things go wrong. One of my big mantras is something will always go wrong, but if the attendee, if the viewer doesn't know that something went wrong, then nothing went wrong.
Oh yeah, like I learned that in theater when I've I've definitely had a case where like someone had to drop from the production, like in school, someone had to drop from the production because of illness or anything like that, like less than a week before curtain time. And I had the only person who knew the script vaguely enough was me, and I had to learn the script for like 2 other parts in the play that we were putting on that particular year. In addition to me being the stage manager and having my own parts in the production, I had to take over like another person's like 2 roles or whatever, and like within the final week of production, and it was just like people could not tell I was not supposed to be the one who was playing that part, which was really good. And people couldn't tell, like, you know, and even though I feel like improv is like probably the form of theater I was always the weakest at, if it were structured improv where like I knew that there was a certain direction that the scene had to go in before it could get back on track with its lines, like I could always like make up for mistakes and improv through mistakes and adapt well.
Gosh,
whether it was someone missed their line or I missed my own line.
Yeah, I have a lot of theater stories of, you know, just productions going sideways one way or another. My favorite story that I can tell in a short span of time is I was in a production of Charlotte's Web, and one of the big plot points of Charlotte's Web is Charlotte writes these words in her webs, and there's 3 different words that happens on 3 different nights. And the way that our Charlotte did this was we had 3 different prop webs that were hidden under the barn that she would sleep in the night before, and they were each marked with colored tape, and house lights would go down, she would grab the web, she would hang it up, and lights come up, web is there. On one of the nights, the first word is supposed to be terrific. Lights come up, it says some pig. Do you have any idea how many lines in the scenes following that are about the word terrific? Or in later scenes when some pig is there, referencing some pig. So it was all hands on deck. Things like the information got through the cast in minutes of wrong web went up. If you have a line that references the word terrific, it's now some pig. And then it was, all right, we then now know anything that is going to be some pig, you need to mentally rehearse your lines. It's terrific tonight. And
oh my goodness,
we didn't miss a beat. And
that's so
everyone
good.
Was like, usually backstage people are just chatting, it's casual if it's not opening or closing night, but this night everyone was huddled around the monitor, the speaker backstage where you're getting the feed from what's going on stage, people listening, knowing when these lines are coming up, and just, you know, bated breath as everyone, it's like, are they going to remember to switch around? And just the hype every time that someone would hit those lines, because it was a thing of, it's going to sound really blatantly wrong if someone flubs up one of these. It's sometimes you can improv through it, but if someone muscle memories terrific tonight, it's going to be a problem. And we made it, and it was such a cool night.
That's so good. Like that's a great success story of like adapting to something that went wrong and like covering it up and making it look like it was intentional. Like that is also part of like speedrunning, I think, as well, is that like you need to adapt to the things that go wrong in the run. And some people, especially like the general viewer who will watch like Games Done Quick, people who only watch GDQ, right? And they don't watch like people's like grinding repeated attempts at PBs or anything like that, right? If they are watching a speedrun for the first time and you do not draw attention to your mistake, people probably won't be able to tell it's a mistake unless it's like a death or something like that. But if it's just say, oh, I missed this trick, so I guess I'm just going to do this like as intended, or I'm going to do this backup strat, and it flows really well, and you don't mention this, like 99% of viewers will not know that like it was not supposed to be that way.
Oh gosh, we've been at this almost 3.5 hours, and honestly, if left unchecked, I think that you and I could give my longest episode a run for its money, Amber, but I know that you have other commitments today, so we're going to start wrapping things up. But gosh, there are so many things that we had that we could potentially have talked about today. You're really into geocaching. You mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! There was a lot there. We have a shared love of video game music. We could have gone on for, I bet we could have gotten an hour talking about live theater if you want to, easily. You have a series, it's called the Sonic Series Retrospective, where you're going back and revisiting the classic Sonic games. You can see the videos for that in the panels of their channel. And
yeah, that's actually a really old project I plan on rebooting. I just haven't gotten around to it because I started binging on Pokemon.
oops. But still, this was so good that being able to do these deep dives on your history with events, or, you know, I didn't expect to go as deep as we did with the Wooper one, but you're a fantastic storyteller, and this has been a total blast for me. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have.
Oh, I've had a ton of fun doing this. Like, this was a lot of fun, and like, if anyone here is listening, and maybe you're listening through YouTube or something, and you want to hear, like, you know, maybe pick my brain on some of the other things we didn't get to, like geocaching or anything like that. I'm a person, especially when I'm doing Pokemon, I talk about literally anything else than what I'm doing sometimes. And just like, if you come up to my channel and just ask me questions, or like, you know, whatever, or just start a conversation, like, I usually respond. As long as it's something that I actually know about. If you try to ask me about Sonic the Comic, which is the UK comic, I can't contribute to that because I've never read it. But my chat certainly will respond well to that because I have several people who really like it.
Yes, definitely. Be sure to follow Amber here on Twitch or on Twitter. Both of their links are there at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, there will be a bunch of links down in the description. I've shouted Amber out here for the live viewers. I have just a couple final questions to wrap things up. The first is, do you have any goals for the rest of the year? That we are, as weird as it is, almost halfway through 2022. Whether it be the completion of a particular event, or a particular speedrun, a Twitch metric, do you have any specific goals that you've set for yourself for the remainder of the year?
A few different things, actually. I would like to complete Emerald, Ironmon, regular, maybe do Ultimate, or maybe do another game.
Like, I don't want to jinx it, but you're dangerously close right now.
I'm on a good run right now, but I've died at level 94 before in an offline run where I was just testing the tracker, so who knows? I'm going in with zero expectations once I hit Victory Road. I do expect I'll get to Victory Road, but yeah. I think I would love to be able to hit partner at some point. That'd be really cool. I got an uptick in viewership following my AGDQ 2022 appearance, and I know that I've shot that viewership semi in the foot by not following up by only doing Sonic, but like, my identity is much more than just Sonic, and it drives me up the wall to only ever do Sonic. I do want to, like, speaking of Sonic, I do want to reboot the Sonic series retrospective because my production values are much higher than they were when I started the project in like 2017. So I would like to revisit all the games that I had visited, and I now have the means of playing like all the DS stuff on console rather than emulator and stuff like that. So I would really like to do that. I don't know if I'll actually start it this year. I would like to. I would really like to hope that the next fast pace for Headspace in December beats the goal of, like, I'm not going to say $14,000 from the Only Marathon. Like, I will openly say that I think that was a fluke because of the cause of the marathon and the charity it was raising money for. But I would like fast pace for Headspace 2022 to raise more than the first fast pace for Headspace in 2021, which was like about $3,800 or something like that. I might be blowing numbers out my butt right now, but like, it was definitely over $3,000 that we raised back in November. I would like to raise more than, you know, let's shoot for like 4,000, 4,500 or something, maybe even 5,000 for December. I'd really like that. I think that's probably the main goals I have. Just like trying to push fast-paced events a little bit more, and maybe become a Twitch partner, because I would really like more emote slots, and I would really like, even though I don't currently fully utilize the ones I have, I want more. And those emotes are in progress at some point soon. TM. But yeah, pushing my own stream more, and like, kind of like, I don't want GDQ to be my only identity. I am very proud to be part of GDQ Hotfix. And I love working for GDQ as, you know, a showrunner, but it is not my only identity, and I have like a lot of my own personal like things I want to chase, and I want to, you know, establish myself more and more as part of maybe a non-binary and or VTubing like representative in speedrunning. And I know a lot of people currently look up to me for the fact that I'm a non-binary speedrunner, and I hope to continue to foster that like sort of like community for people that's safe and accepting. So it's kind of like what I want to do in 2022 or the rest of 2022. That being said, my birthday's in 2 weeks, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing in time for my birthday, but we'll figure it out.
Yep, just figuring out, take things one day at a time. And the last question I ask all my guests, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what is the definition of a VTuber, but to you, Amber Cyprian, what does it mean to be a VTuber? I've had guests who have had a very clinical approach and said, it is a mask that I wear, it is a tool in my arsenal as a content creator. Others have had more personal answers that I've had people say, it lets me get in touch with my inner child, or it lets me be something that I can't be in real life. And everything in that scope and beyond is legitimate, but I feel like there's a slightly different answer for everyone. So for you, Amber, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
So being a VTuber for me was the gateway to be able to express myself a little more on stream while being, not invading my own privacy or my partner's privacy. I've talked about this earlier in the discussion, but it allowed me to present in a way that doesn't make me feel extremely dysphoric. Being non-binary and being AFAB, like I struggle in real life with presenting more, like, and mind you, being non-binary does not equal you must be presenting it as an androgynous person. Never let anyone tell you that, because that is simply not true. Non-binary is a spectrum. You can present how you wish, but and it's very important that I stress that. But I myself really do like presenting more androgynously, because that makes me happy. It makes me feel good, because I'm neither a man nor a woman, and I accept that I have some aspects of traditional masculine or traditional feminine aspects in my personality, and like I prefer to lean a little more masculine or androgynous, but I do acknowledge that I do still have some feminine aspects in my personality, or things that I like, or just some traits, right? I think that it is much more, I'm not gender fluid, but I do think that gender is fluid, and I being able to finally bring a character that I had for years to life that was very personal to me. Minus was always, very ambiguous in their gender, and wasn't how I discovered what being non-binary was, but was like definitely kind of like the gateway to figuring out how I myself wanted to present physically before I knew that non-binary was a thing. It allowed me to like express myself on stream, give people a face to the name of Amber Cyprian, because I've been on Twitch for years, and I've been in the speedrunning community for years, and I've been an event organizer for, several years now. It was really nice to like finally give people a face to associate with the name, and to actually give people like something to interact with. And for me, it was more of an affirmation of my identity, and how I wanted to present. And I know for other people that have asked me the same question, it's very much a similar thing. It allows them to feel more comfortable streaming. It gives them that confidence. I feel like I would still probably be streaming if I didn't have Minus, but like if I didn't have Minus, I don't think my streams would be quite as like, enjoyable for me. So like, it's just, that's what VTubing is. It's a means of expression, and to some degree affirming like my identity, and I think that's really important. Even if it isn't entirely what I look like in real life. Minus is not super far removed from how I like to look in real life. And in fact, that's actually, there are people who VTube to look like something that isn't human, or like at all, and they let them be something that they can't be in real life, and I think that's really, really awesome. I tend to play, like, for me, VTubing is less is more. I like having the kind of like spiky anime hair sort of thing going on, and like the really dark black eyes rather than my lighter gray ones in real life. But like otherwise, Minus isn't very far removed from what you would see from a person and what you would see from me in real life. So like, I don't know, I just like, I like being able to be an avatar and have that motion. It's actually why I do Vroid, because the hand tracking and stuff too. Like, I like feeling, I like looking alive without necessarily being of this world as well. So, I don't know, there's a lot of things to it.
And definitely, given all the things we discussed today, I always say, I never know how someone is going to answer that question, but the answer is never a surprise. And I just really enjoy hearing people sort of answer that and express their relationship with VTubing in their own words. So thank you very much for sharing that with us and for sharing with us in general today. That, like I said, this has been a blast. And while we were able to go really deep on some subjects, those are obviously not the only things that you do. So if you are not already following Amber, be sure to follow them on Twitch, on Twitter. If you feel so inclined, you can follow me as well. I do about one show a week. I have my next couple shows actually planned already. You can keep up with me on Twitter. It's just /Vtuber Talk, both here and there. And this show will be available on YouTube in about a week. And if you're watching on YouTube, hi, YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for sticking around all the way till the end. So, Amber, as we wind down, who would you like us to raid?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me actually see who we have, who I have live. Let me also minimize chat because it's in my way.
As they look around, once again, like I said, definitely be sure to follow Amber on Twitch and Twitter. Be sure to follow Games Done Quick. Check out the Trevor Project. I actually know there is a group of VTubers. Well, actually, no, sorry, it's a stream team. It's not just VTubers, called the Wrecking Crew, who have had several members who were on my shows in the past. They actually did a month-long charity event for the Trevor Project across all their members, ultimately raising the very iconic $42,069. So the Trevor Project, this is definitely not the first time that organization has been mentioned on this show. Great group. Take this as well. Very cool. The group that I've been doing stuff with, that I did one event with and that I will be doing another event with next January, is Child's Play Charity. But whether it be for one of these organizations or something else in general, support charities if you have the means to, and even if you can't contribute financially, just tuning into these streams still helps out. Even if you're not chatting, if you're just lurking, tuning in, it really does help. That it helps the algorithm for making it so other people can see. But also, it's nice to have an audience. It is, and for event organizers, they put in a lot of time and effort. So support them when you can, how you can. Oh, and I see you have sent me a link.
Yep. I'd like
601.
to.
They were in here earlier.
Yeah, like he's one of my heads of tech at Fast Pace Events. He's currently speedrunning Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited, which is a fan-made version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and he's doing a Chaos the Imposter, which is like basically Chaos Zero, but it can transform into Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles and utilize all of their abilities. So he's doing a run of Chaos, which is really, really cool. And so definitely recommend him. He's delightful, and like he also sometimes streams his cat on its own channel, which is great. But
yes, I see
very
their
delightful
icon is this
person.
very dapper little cat with a bow tie, so I'm guessing that's them.
That's Ted, yeah. So definitely gonna send the love over to Huds, I think, because he's probably the only channel I'm currently interested in that I want to raid.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today, Amber. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in live or watching on YouTube. I'm Jay. This is Vtuber Talk. Thank you, and I will see you all next time.